check and see.
Yeah, check our levels. Chat, we're gonna... Oh, I'm still not connected to chat yet. What?
Just opened up my Twitch and saw that it's on light mode. Ugh.
See, I can't look at things in dark mode, and I never tell that.
No, dark mode always.
I need light mode, but I think it's because my eyes are broken.
I think so. Yeah, we're definitely live, so that's good.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm gonna check us out as well.
I just heard myself before an advert came up, so yeah, sounds coming through clearly.
Oh, Jonathan! Oh, goodness, Jonathan's just subscribed for 10 more months. Thank you so much.
I am here. Brilliant.
Just so you know that box pops up, but it's over my video, but under Kate and Kiley's.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. Oh, my alert box. Yep, I was working on everyone's names and then forgot to bring the alert box back to the top. It's there now, though.
Yep, your audio might be a little high.
Okay, that's always
like always.
Yeah. Let's see.
At least in Discord, it's coming through.
Well, see, that's the problem.
Because I was messing around with settings last week myself. So
talkie. There, that should also, be
Bueno
better.
Brent.
Blah 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 blah. Hey, Braino.
Hey, Bueno.
Braino Buint.
Yeah. Apparently, Brent is now just known as Bueno or Braino.
Okay, wait.
I don't know.
Let me listen how I'm talking, because that makes sense.
Let me hear myself for a few moments.
Yeah, because I noticed last week it was ridiculously loud, and I did not like it. Oh, I can hear myself on somebody's.
Well, when I went through on the editing, it was fine on my end, like with it.
It's the actual stream. It peaks real bad, but
yeah, it was the backup recording that I used for the edit, so it seemed to be fine on that. But yeah, like, are you adjusting yourself?
Yeah, I am adjusting myself on screen. Yes, Brent. I spell it in my head as Braino. Okay, hold on. Let me talk. I'm gonna listen to myself. You guys talk amongst yourself.
Sorry, I was just like checking the levels, so we're all good. So
I think it might be okay now.
Oh, friend of the show. Hello, Mike.
Howdy.
Hey, folks, can't stop long. Just popped by to say hello and wish you well with the podcast.
Aww.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Mike.
Enjoy your day, sir.
Absolutely.
And Sergio is here at Force in Unison.
Oh, hello.
Very good.
Nice to see you.
Welcome.
Yes, I will say, obviously, just quickly now that I'll be attending a convention next month for Rapid Reviews, and I hope that Mike Tendo is going to be there too. But we'll see on that one. There's some messages going back and forth between us.
Oh goodness, now that'll be great. That will be.
Yeah,
great.
I'll tell you off air, Kiley, about it, because there might be a bit of brand unity in this one.
Ooh, I always love that.
Brandy drinking unity?
No, brand unity.
Oh, okay, brand unity. Oh, okay.
Mike, if you were to, Force in Unison, if you were to see a little bit closer, everything is as dusty as anything.
Or if you can see over here, let's see. Hey.
Yeah, you're not allowed to see that part. Oh, nice. Good to see that, Mike. Perfect. So he said the flights are paid for, so that means he could be making it. So brilliant.
That's actually very good. I'm very glad about that.
Yeah.
And where's that show at, or what are you guys going to?
It's called WASD, and it's in London at the Tobacco Docks. It's going to be April I just need to bring the calendar up. So it's April the 7th to the 9th. So it's basically the equivalent of EGX Res, except it's a completely new show, but it's organised by the old guy who used to run EGX.
That's excellent.
Okay, awesome.
So it's going to be wicked.
Very, very good.
Do we? I was just going to say, do we tweet out that we're live at all?
Thank you. So that's something I need to do.
That's Pete's job.
I'd forgotten that because last week when I was hosting the stream, I just did it automatically.
Okay.
Let's see, and I will do a Discord message unless someone else wants to.
Go ahead. You're hosting, so you gotta do it.
Okay. Let's see.
As we get our act together here. Super Rare Games are going to be there, Mike says in the chat. That's
Oh,
awesome.
that
He
would
did
be very
indeed.
cool.
Yeah, I met a couple of the guys from Super Rare Games actually recently. So I met God, why am I Ryan? Met Ryan from Super Rare at
Okay.
EGX last year, and then I
Okay.
also met the founder of Super Rare at a Together We Play event in November. So
Okay.
grabbed an email address. We're going to try and get him onto the show at some point in the future as well.
Is that Ryan Brown?
Yes,
Ryan's
Toads.
yeah,
so
Toad's anime, Toad's.
Yeah, Toads
yeah, but
Anime.
but there was another. There's the main founder of Super Rare. I
Oh,
met
okay.
him, and he's the guy that we're going to try and talk to, as well as Ryan, to get on the show.
Awesome. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that'd
So
be
you're going to try
great.
and do a live show while you're there?
That would be very
It
cool.
Or
seems very unlikely that we'll be
oh,
able to
okay.
do it
Just
there.
have them later down the road.
Yeah, probably come on the podcast at some point.
Excellent. That's awesome. I might have some ideas in the future of some things we could talk about later.
Nice.
Just something that actually Force in Unison, Sergio and I are working up that might be advantageous to have on the podcast.
Nice. We've
VR thing?
we're currently in the discussions about our next episode actually, which is going to be another interesting one. But obviously,
Oh yeah.
very much focused on this episode right now because I'm loving the
Yeah.
idea that we've got for this. So
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Chat, we're gonna give you just a couple more minutes to filter in, but we've got a great episode. It is, of course, about the Switch anniversary. Which, if you know anything,
Yeah.
if you know anything about this, I'm gonna sit back and host and let these two very handsome fellows talk about the Switch.
Where? Another guy in here? Where?
Oh dear, oh dear.
I was just thinking that myself actually. I
Oh,
was
dear.
like, has my brother got in again?
Oh dear.
Uh,
Every time, every time.
Every time. It is what it is. Excellent.
Uh,
So did that get tweeted out as far as
just doing it now. Sorry,
just
I
doing
got
it now?
minorly distracted.
No worries, no worries. You were looking for that handsome gentleman.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a new camera. I'm not 100% sold on it yet. Let's see if we can get it better.
Well,
Clearly you were because you bought it. You were sold. You sold.
Oh,
Well, someone sold it. Sorry.
They sold it to me.
Yeah.
So Mike also mentioned. So I guess Ryan is going to be in San Francisco. So I'm guessing that's GDC.
Yeah, I did
which is
see the
coming
tweet
up.
out about that. That's
And
awesome.
then he also said might be a bit far for you. I mean, San Francisco is far, but also, anything in the UK would be far. But let's just say someday I hope to, I don't know, maybe invade Pete or Kiley's space and just do an actual in-person podcast sometime, but do some kind of
Yeah.
rapid reviews, Mike Tendo, whatever it might be,
Trust
get
me,
to an event and
that's a hope. That is a
That
hope for the
is,
future. We want to try and
especially-
get as many people together as possible for a live event.
Especially
Yep,
since
I think that would be awesome.
the lockdown is over here in Northern Ireland finally.
Yeah.
We're the longest to have the lockdown.
Yep.
That means I can start moving forward with my ideas and such.
Of course, yeah.
Be great.
All right. Well, Mike is just saying that he's going to go. So
Oh, yeah.
thanks, Mike, for stopping by for another show. And unfortunately, you're going to miss when I get to talk about you. But maybe you can catch up on the Post-it show after it's up, and hopefully I said all the good things about you.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Mike. Much appreciated. It's like we'll look out for your listen on the audio version. But have a good Sunday, my friend.
Oh yeah.
And actually say I met him at EG. Him and oh god, Mike
Jack,
and
his brother.
That's the one. This Jack. Yeah, I met them both at EGX, and they're sound guys. So yeah, looking forward to meeting them again on in April. So that's going to be awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, Brent put maybe during the meetup if they're still in the works. It 100% is hopefully still in the works at some point in the future. Just the world is finally looks like it's starting to actually open up again. So
thank goodness.
hooray!
And I should have a jacuzzi installed by June. So
that hot tub stream really is going to happen now, isn't it?
Yes.
And yet, I said that it was never going to happen until we hit 1 million of something, and yet we've not got anywhere close to that. So come on, people, we've got time still.
Do you want to give chat 2 more minutes? Or do you want to go forward? Go forth.
Did you tweet out that yet?
I have, yeah. It's gone.
Okay.
It's gone. It's
out
there.
Okay.
It's in the ether.
Okay.
Then we'll give chat, not Pat. I don't know who Pat is. We'll give chat 2 more minutes.
I'm pretty sure there is. I know a Pat called the NES Punk. You know, Pat the NES Punk.
Oh,
yeah, bad jokes. You know.
Great.
Love a good bad joke.
Yeah, I don't actually know the guy. He's just a YouTuber.
I love you.
Okay, so where did you tweet that out to just Rapid Reviews? Because I'm not seeing it.
Oh, it's from the Rapid Reviews Radio pod Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at the wrong Rapid Reviews.
I know it's a bit confusing.
Radio. There we go.
I know. Yeah, it's a bit.
But it makes sense behind the scenes.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
it's to try not to sort of like inundate like everyone with like stuff constantly. You know. That was one of the things that we looked at with Mike about how we communicated the podcast, and it was better to keep it separate and get it tweeted out from Rapid Reviews main account as well. Well, retweeted from there.
Yep. Yeah. Makes sense.
Also, Kylie, I've just noticed that your Xbox pad is on the desk there, just so that you can make everyone aware still that you are an Xbox gamer.
I'm an Xbox gamer. Also,
I got mine here too.
Currently learning. Is it backwards?
Is that?
Oh, it's backwards, isn't it? Well,
are you learning Japanese?
Learning, yes.
Nice.
Write it. It's very cool.
Whilst we've got a moment, awesome things here.
Oh gosh! Oh dear.
Because
show and tell.
the Christmas present that Kylie sent finally arrived 3 months later.
I sent that from Northern Ireland in November, at the end of November, early December.
Oh wow!
And it just now arrived. That tells you how behind we are.
Yeah, I sent one in just early December that still hasn't arrived.
Nope.
So you can see that. The heat-changing Mario mug, of course.
Nice.
That's going. By the way, that's going straight to work, Kylie. I'm just showing that off to everybody, of course.
Excellent.
And this one was a little bit more confused by, but it's going to be awesome once I actually move into my own house. And,
that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
This looks like a Mario 3D World sort of like puzzle set, like block set, which is bloody awesome. So
it's so you can display your figures.
Yeah, they will go alongside the Mario amiibos that I've got right behind me.
Yes.
But yeah, that seems like it's more of a thing to definitely put up when I've got
that's what it's for. Is your new place. All right, I think we are going to move straight ahead.
We shall indeed. Are you running a backup on the stream?
I'm not, but I can.
Wow, that one took you right by surprise, clearly.
Yes, it chokes me up. Yeah, okay, so this is 114. Pete, if you want to count me down.
We know how badly that goes every week, but let's do it anyway. So we're gonna start the show in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Rapid Reviews Radio, episode 114. I remembered it without looking at things. Anyway, I am your co-host, Kiley Wilde, and I am joined today not only by my ever-present co-host, Pete Beckett.
Hello.
But I'm joined today by a special guest, Jonathan.
Hey everyone, I'm finally on the show.
I can't believe it. Yes, if you are a regular consumer of our media, and you are, of course, that's why you're here. You've seen Jonathan in the chat, but he also reviews for Rapid Reviews UK, reviews for My Nintendo, and he also does a lot of our back-end work. So, very
website back-end work.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's not make things filthy already.
Hey, it's me. Anything that comes out of my mouth is filthy.
Yeah.
So what? 1 minute in?
Yeah.
That's about how long it usually takes.
That's a record. We actually have a really, really good and exciting show today because both of these guys are very passionate about a certain brand. Oh, I don't know, a gaming thing called Nintendo. A little company you might have heard of. And to explore that further, actually, usually, you know what I do? I usually ask people how they are before we do that.
Might help, yeah.
It's polite. You know what? I want to say something though. I want to say something because I know a lot of our followers saw this on Twitter. I'm sure there was someone talking about podcasts and how they hate that podcasts don't start right away. That they have to wait up to 10 minutes for the meat of the podcast to start. And that's fine. I think that everyone's entitled to absolutely their opinion, but I like to warm up a little bit. And there's Mike in the chat right now. Great to see you on the pod, Jonathan.
Hey.
Yep. Thanks. Thanks, man.
But I think it's nice to warm up and we get a little human touch. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I do every week and ask Jonathan, how have you been this week?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Things have simmered down a little bit in the Ober house. My girls have finished up their basketball season, so that means their mom, Lee, my wife, is done coaching for the season for right now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then basketball's over, so that's kind of freed up a little bit of our time. But that's a short, like 2 weeks of freedom because they're gonna kick right off into soccer for Bailey, who is 12, and then Morgan will start doing the musical at their school. So as we take a little time off, we ramp right back up into the next thing. But it's nice to have a little bit of relaxing lull. Work's been busy and chaotic, but at the same time, it's good. But I still get my 8 hours of sleep at night, so I can't
that's
complain
good.
too much.
That's very good.
Lucky you, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. That's worth more than riches. Pete, what about you? How's your week been?
Chaotic, to say the least. I have taken a few more responsibilities on with work, and I'm now leading the charge in training the next generation of workers. So why they ever gave that to me, I have no idea. But hey, clearly they trust me enough to do that. So it's nice to see, to be honest with you. So, but it has been crazy hectic. I've been in the office 5 days a week for this week, and for the next 2 weeks, I've got the same thing to do. So sleep has definitely eluded me this week and running probably on about 4 or 5 hours roughly, which is about an hour less than normal.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh yeah, lucky you. You know, father of two still gets more sleep than a single man.
Well, I like what Nana has said in the chat. Well, I like two of the things he said in the chat, but the first being, to quote Brain Scratch commentaries, Merry Switchmas, everyone. That's what I should have said. It's Merry Switchmas.
I mean, that was the obvious one.
Yeah, but okay.
He also said, hello, damn Kiley, looking nerdy now. Like,
okay. So our listeners can't see, but I did get my I'm going back on the road. I'm driving again starting tomorrow. Yeah. But I'm also legally blind, so I have to get glasses so I can drive.
So you're basically spending this time getting used to them again. I'm getting
used to them again. I have to admit I don't like them. But I'll probably switch to contacts before long, but
yeah, I'm supposed to wear glasses for the computer. I just completely yeeted those because I could not deal with them.
The minute the eye guy, I forget what they're called,
Optician.
Optometrist,
yeah. He stuck some light in my eye and he goes, "Oh, do you work with the computers a lot?" And I was like, "Ha ha ha ha."
Do I? I'm not sure about that
24/7, and then I go to sleep with an iPad. So he's like, "Oh," but he never elaborated. But anyway, so
did you get the old puff of air in the eyes when they did it as well?
I did.
Are you sure it wasn't just the optometrist just going?
Ooh, that's really gross, Pete. That's so gross to think about. But anyway, we're gonna move swiftly. Moving on. I was gonna say swiftly, which I guess was swift and quickly.
Switchly?
Yeah.
But you missed
switchily. Moving on.
No, you've missed the chance to say we're gonna switch up this discussion.
Let's switch it up now, and get to the heart of this. I'm gonna switch it. I am gonna switch it over to Pete. And let him kind of introduce our topic and introduce the points of order as he and Jonathan talk about the lovely, beautiful machine console, if it were, as it were,
Definitely is a console.
known as the
Or,
Switch.
or is it?
Or is it? It's a way of
Yeah.
life, Pete. It's a way of life.
I can definitely tell you that for sure. I've got a few stories about my time with the Switch, but we can go into that in a bit. So,
All right, I'm turning it
yeah.
over to Pete now.
Okay, so yep, we are talking about the Switch, as some may know, if you're old enough to remember the old reveal trailer that we got in October of
Oh yes.
2016.
Yep.
Oof, I remember where I was when I watched that trailer for the first time, but we'll go into that in a bit. The Switch actually released on the 3rd of March in 2017. Has now been on the market for just over 5 years, with the anniversary being a few days ago. And within those 5 years, has now gone on to become Nintendo's most successful home console of all time, with well over 103 million units sold. That's now beaten out the Wii's lifetime sales, which is absolutely incredible. It is very fast approaching the DS numbers as well, but we'll see whether or not it makes it in the couple of years, or whether or not they go and upgrade it to a new Switch, or we'll see from there. But anyway, so just to give a bit of an overview about some of the things that we've seen within the time, so released on the 3rd of March 2017, that bolstered some of the launch games being, well, some small title known as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, as well as the officially the overpriced tech demo of 1-2 Switch.
Oh, goodness.
But we also had a couple of other launch games from other partners, like Konami, who released Super Bomberman R. You had Fast RMX, that was an upgraded version of Fast Racing. I can't remember the full title from the Wii U version. Is it Fast Neo Racing? I think it was.
That sounds correct. But I was also going to
Yeah.
say it's basically their answer to where the heck is F-Zero? You know?
Yeah, yeah. It's the indie F-Zero. Let's just call it
Oh,
at this
Yeah.
point.
nice.
But
Nice.
also an awesome little first party title that was created by a couple of UK developers by the name of Snipperclips Cut It Out, which is utterly incredible. Everyone should play it, even though it's a launch game. Was amazing to play, and I
Yep.
remember playing it with my girlfriend's brother, and he was like, "What the hell is this console you've got?" I was like, "Ah." Let me take these controllers off on the side. Here you go. Let's play. And he was sold. He got himself one not long afterwards because of that. But we also had unusually a launch window rather than actual launch games. We had Nintendo claiming that the launch window was going to be for that first year on the market, which also included such massive releases as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Puyo Puyo Tetris, ARMS, Sonic Mania, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Splatoon 2, Disgaea 5 Complete, and I don't know, another small game known as Mario Odyssey. You know, uh, bit of an alright game, that one, I guess. So, but within the first year of the console being on the market, it had just about got close to the lifetime sales of the Wii U, the actual worldwide lifetime sales of the Wii U, not just one console. As I said, it has gone on to sell 103.54 million units as of December 2021. But software sales have now eclipsed 766.41 million units as of December 2021. So I think the first point of call is obviously to talk about how this was revealed, and the discussion, and a small discussion about all the things that Nintendo were putting out into the ether before that the trailer that they released, that 3-minute trailer that showed off the concept of the Switch. So I guess, Jonathan, do you happen to remember like all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember being excited about a new Switch system. And just to give a little history, I'm old enough that my first hands-on with a Nintendo console was the NES. Had one in my house. Very vividly remember um, different NES games growing up, Mario and Zeldas and um, Duck Hunt and the track and field game.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I've tracked through with Nintendo since their first home console. Along that way, I've had the SNES. I've had, actually, it's probably easier to say what I haven't had. I've never owned a Game Boy Micro. I've never owned a Rob the Robot, though I have played with one in person at a friend's house. I've never owned a Virtual Boy, though I've gone hands on with one from time to time.
Mm.
Local stores that actually
Yep.
had a kiosk you could lean into and play.
Yep.
Um, and I mean, I've even owned, and I still have my original Game Boy. My mom
Nice.
still plays on it, plays Tetris on it.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so
that's
I'd
awesome.
say like to say that I'm a fan of Nintendo, um, that's probably underselling a little bit of my enthusiasm towards it. So tracking along, we talked about the Wii numbers and the Switch surpassing that. Um, Obviously, after that, the Wii U was a critical failure or a commercial failure. I have some love for the Wii U. I wouldn't say I have a lot of love for it, just because I feel like um, there was a lot of missed potential there. But having transitioned then into the Switch, I do remember just being super excited. I still have my 3DSs and my DS, and thinking the marrying of the handheld and the console coming together, seeing those Joy Cons come on and off and being used sideways in a different way, kind of harkened a little bit back to the Wii when you would turn the Wii controller sideways. But I just remember being excited about like the potential there and what could happen. So, not necessarily remember where I was when I watched it. That was probably just in the living room with the girls, watching this thing be shown off. Um, but then I would say even being more excited, I think early in January when, kind of more of like what that launch window would look like with Breath of the Wild, maybe with 1-2 Switch and maybe snipper clips. I feel like I remember those being shown. And then just being shown the HD Rumble, which, we could digress and talk about how that may not have been used to its fullest potential yet. But, the idea of like, um, the ice cubes and that with the one gentleman showing off like how you would be able to count ice cubes.
Yeah.
um, I think the best showcase of that is still maybe um, uh, one of the Mario Party games that came out. I
That'd be
feel like there's
Super Mario Party, I think it was.
Super Mario Party. Yeah, I think that one has some of the best use of HD Rumble. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I was super stoked. I was sold. And I'll maybe get to talk a little bit about this as far as
Oh,
my pre-order journey. But yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts when I remember seeing the Switch released and the early demos and stuff that was put out
yeah.
in the start of the console.
I actually have something to add to this discussion as well.
You go ahead.
For the first time ever. But it's funny because it's actually born off the back of what some of chat is saying. Also, hey Sinjo,
Yeah.
and yes, go check out last week's VOD where Pete goes on the rant about the
Street Fighter
logo.
Street
6.
Fighter
Yeah.
6. Okay.
But Forced in Unison, I'm calling by his chat name. I knew the Switch was going to be successful when the first reveal commercial released and the messaging of the system was crystal clear. With that said, how much do you believe that commercial set the tone for the success of the Switch? Now, here's where I want to put my two very unnecessary cents in. Now,
Not unnecessary.
well,
They were trying to they are trying to target like gamers and non-gamers alike. So this kind of commercial was trying to sell to you.
I'm a gamer though. But B goes silent. But this is what was so funny to me is that I'm it's again it's personal preference. As we know, I'm an Xbot through and through. I kind of take on some PlayStation, Sony Pony ever so often, but not right now. Now I'm pretty much an Xbot.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? We need a bit of a sidetrack here, and I know that's terrible to say, but we've got Xbox, we've got Sony Pony. What's the Nintendo one, by the way?
Fanboy I
Well, we
just
can't say that because it's family friendly, but it rhymes with
Okay.
Switch.
Okay, fair enough.
Very
Let's
good,
move on very
That
swiftly
was
then.
very good. No, but I remember watching that commercial. This is the thing I was gonna throw out there. I remember not a. It's not. I'm not against Nintendo, but I don't have that joy that you can see kind of in you two and other
Yeah.
people. Very passionate, very joyful. Um,
Yeah. So
although
you don't have that Joy-Con for them then.
yes, although my background, my early days, of course, was the NES and the SNES, blah blah. So that commercial that came out, it took the world by storm. I very much remember it, and I remember, and I was wrong. I was 110% wrong. Going, what the crap is this? They're calling
Mhm.
it the Switch. This isn't
Yeah.
good. Look at those Joy. What? Well, I didn't know they were called Joy Cons at the time. Look
Yeah.
at those are gonna break in like 2 seconds. This is going nowhere. I can't believe Nintendo's doing this. I can't believe it. That was my initial impression. Now
No.
So, are you talking about the initial commercial where it was like,
they're the
Yeah. It's
out
pretty
out
much.
on the rooftop
yes,
party and
that
So,
one.
okay,
so
okay.
yeah, you have the
Yeah,
rooftop party, you have the
I was
Splatoon
like,
being
this
played in
is
like an
this.
arena, and
I was like,
There's
Mario
kids
Kart being played in the car.
in the car, yeah.
yeah, I
So
was
if I
like,
could, yeah, I was just gonna say, if I could talk a little bit about that initial commercial,
yeah,
I am pretty sure that, I mean, I haven't like done the like switch in the little seat of the minivan kind of thing or whatever, but
Yeah.
like my kids have played the Switch in the car. I've played the Switch in the car. Um, I definitely have done like outdoor gaming, just with friends, not necessarily rooftop Karen, but
see
close to
that
it.
that just
Um,
turned me off so
and
much.
and even tabletop playing, thinking about the what is it, like the game collection that they have, the Nintendo first party Clubhouse games, I think it is.
Yeah,
Definitely
yeah,
played that, laying it down and being out in public with it. Have played Jackbox Party Pack
oh
games,
yeah.
just like sit the Switch on a counter, and
Yeah.
everybody's got their phones out and everything. But I think to go back to Force and Unison's initial questions, how much do you believe that the commercial set the tone? I think one of the things Nintendo did early on was to show not focusing just on handheld or desktop, but showing the or docked, but showing the possibilities all through those commercials, and um, allowing people to see what they could do and where they could play, and I think that was something that maybe sets them a little bit apart from what Sony and Xbox have done
Mm-hmm.
in the past, at least in initial console reveals, where it's like, here's the horsepower, here's the
Right.
technology behind it, and and again, this is a general statement because I would say I'm very console agnostic in that. Um, I have a Switch. I have an Xbox. I'm trying to find a PlayStation 5. I've got an Oculus Quest. Actually, we have three Oculus Quests, three Switches, a gaming PC. So there's not a. I would say there's not like a brand
Mm-hmm.
loyalty in my mind for what I'm doing. But like, I think generally speaking, Nintendo has really always been about the games and always showcasing that. And the gimmick, if we have to, label it as a gimmick of the Switch, with the Joy Cons being detachable, being able to play and docked and handheld, um, and just the multiple ways that you can play the Switch. I think they showed that off early on, and I think they
Mm-hmm.
did a great job in setting the stage of what the Switch could be. Whether or not that commercial is what sets the tone, I mean, I think I was sold on the Switch before I saw any really commercials. You tell me you're going to have a Breath of the Wild, or a Zelda's game, or two or three now, maybe um, a Mario 3D Mario game. You extend the Splatoon series into the Switch. I'm sold. I don't need to see a commercial.
Right. Now, see,
Yeah.
that is a very good point, actually. Um, this is, of course, well before we're back in 2016 right now. As Free and Unison said, then in January of 2017 they had the Nintendo Switch presentation.
Yeah, so
Um,
that was like the direct where they started showing off some of the launch titles and some of the titles that were going to come later on, and a bit of a demonstration about actually how the console worked as well.
well, see, I think before, of course, we hit 2020, the game changer. Um, I think before that, it's like Jonathan said. I think if you were already a Nintendo fan, this was holy crap, your holy crap moment. The games that were going to be released, and the portability, and of course Nintendo being known as one of the strongest portable creators, or
Yeah.
portable console creators, I should say, developers. Out there. I think if you were already into Nintendo, this must have been amazing for you. I can only assume. Again, I'm more into the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
hardcore. And at the
Well,
time, the Switch hadn't quite adopted some of those harder core
okay.
titles.
Well,
And,
well,
and they
I'm gonna
also
go.
are
Oh,
okay.
sorry,
Go ahead,
carry
Pete.
on. I was gonna say I'm
Oh,
going against the grain here, like where, as a Nintendo fan, I'm big. You know me. I mean, it's pretty obvious to see that I'm quite a big Nintendo fan, whilst being in the same sort of position that Jonathan's in, where I'm console agnostic. You can see him behind me clearly. But for those watching, but Nintendo's always been my wheelhouse. It's been like it was my first consoles.
Mm-hmm.
The NES was what I played first. I didn't own one, but I played one around my cousin's house.
Right.
Got into it with obviously the SNES, and then whilst I didn't have the N64, my brother did, so there
Mm-hmm.
was one in the house, and I went to PlayStation. I bought myself a GameCube and got a PlayStation 2 as well. So across the years, like Nintendo has always been a focus. But when looking at this trailer that first came out, I hated the name. Like I thought the
Yeah.
name was going to
Yeah.
be the thing that absolutely buried this console because I thought, what the hell is this? You
What does it even mean?
what does it even mean? Now, obviously, it makes more sense because of the different play methods
Yeah.
that you can do. Like, the Joy Cons coming off, I had the same sort of reaction that Kylie did. I thought they were going to break.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't going to feel like actual bits of technology, kind of like. And
mhm.
as much as I love the Wii U, it does feel a bit too plasticky. That
Yeah.
controller and screen, it doesn't feel like a piece of technology. It just feels like a kid's toy. But
Mhm.
this, like, when you finally get the Switch in your hands after seeing all of it, it feels like an actual genuine piece of technology and a good bit of kit. It feels
Mhm.
sturdy. It feels robust. You're not going to break it in your hands unless you're like a monster with it. Let's say,
Monster.
and it's
Yeah.
just it was strange that like that commercial itself or that first presentation just did not sell me on what this potential is. Even though you can clearly see the first thing that they're focusing on is right. You're playing Zelda on a screen, like on your big screen, and you can take it out and take it on the go. I thought, hang on, like my first initial
I thought
thought
who
was,
would do that?
is it really that instantaneous?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, is it going to go from screen to screen, like from main
Right.
screen to handheld screen within the flick of like a few
Yeah.
seconds? I really thought that that was shortened for commercial purposes. No,
Mhm.
that was the biggest surprise when you finally get it out of the box and you put it on the TV and you try that out. You're like, wow, it does switch that quickly. My
Yeah.
goodness. It's
Yeah.
crazy the sort of technology they have available to them. But yeah, I wasn't blown away. I wasn't sold on it. I wasn't even going to get one within the first couple of months. And then all the good reviews about Zelda came out, and I was like, no, the FOMO hit me
I was
so
gonna say
badly, and I needed to go and get
Pete,
one. So I
Yeah.
think actually I did end up
Pete and
getting mine
FOMO.
on the 6th of March.
Oh
So
gosh.
so today is 5 years since I've owned a Switch.
Okay.
That would
Nice.
be
Yeah.
about right.
And
Yeah.
if I can, and again, I think like one of the things, Pete, you talk about like switching and just the instantaneousness of it. Um, like I think one thing that I found being a father who has kids that are playing it, like
Right.
there is a little bit more uh, solidness of I think the Joy-Con. I mean, obviously, we could sidetrack into drift and those issues, but let's just
Mm.
know that, even other,
We can drift into
there's been
those
drift
issues.
on Sony and Microsoft controllers,
There is.
maybe
There
not as
Oh,
is.
different degrees, but
There
I
is.
think
So.
overall there's a solidness of the Switch. Even just holding the screen by itself, it doesn't feel that it has that flex to it. And not that I'm one to like put my consoles through the rigor and twist them and everything. But if I could just say, if I haven't said it already, Morgan is still using my day one Switch.
Oh,
That's the
wow.
Switch that I had delivered to my office because at that point, and I'll say in my almost 18 years of marriage, anything above like $30, Lee and I, talk about. But I bought the Switch without telling her, and I had my day one Switch. I had it delivered to my office, held it in my hand, played a very little bit of Zelda because I didn't want to. I wanted to present the Switch when I got home to my family, uh, and kind of enjoy it together.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I did is, as we were kind of settling down for the night, Lee was laying in bed. And I forget if I think she was reading, and I had the Switch and I kind of walked it in and I just laid down on the bed. And started playing Zelda, and I had the volume up just a little bit. And I'm just playing. I kid you not, I was probably laying in bed for about 5 minutes, and she kind of, I'm moving around playing Zelda, and she, kind of felt me, stirring next to her, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And she kind of like looked at me, then kind of went back to her reading, and then she was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "This is the Nintendo Switch, and this is Zelda." And she like grabs it out of my hands, and it was like, When did you get this?" And so I explained to her a little bit. Um, I think the only thing that I wasn't ready for in that moment was that we turned Zelda off and we detached the Joy-Con and we played snipper clips for a couple, maybe an hour, laying in bed. And that was, in that moment, it was like, wow, this is what the commercial showed, and I'm at, kind of doing it right now, like, laying in
Right.
bed there.
Right.
But at the same time, then it was, just that uniqueness of um, playing Zelda handheld, and arguably, like, I guess whenever Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, arguably like the one of the best looking Zelda games, just when it comes to the vastness of the world, the amount of time that you could sink into it, and just the difference of that game. It was different, um, and that. But I think just the initial holding the Switch in my hand, I was like, this is everything that the Wii U should have been.
Yes.
And in some
Yes.
ways, the Wii U was the tech demo. And I don't know if it's because of technology and where it was at again, because
Mm-hmm.
now we're still on you know kind of like 5 or 6 year, probably maybe 6 7 year old
Mm-hmm.
technology inside the Switch when it comes to the
Yes.
hardware.
Yeah.
And so thinking about where cell phones were at that time, 2016, 2017. Um, that's, uh, let's see, first iPhone was 2007, I believe, because I think it was the
Mm-hmm.
same year
Yes. I remember that
Morgan,
quite
yeah, I
well.
think, or no, it might have been like 2000,
It
yeah, somewhere in around there.
it
Yeah, I'd
was
have
like
to look.
6 or 7 for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
remember getting my 3GS, and Morgan was in a stroller. So I think the
Aw.
3G, um, would have been out the first iPhone. Anyways, but that technology that's kind of in the Switch as its screened, um, device, like that's 5 year old technology. So where the handheld cell phone market was at in that time,
Mm-hmm.
and the capabilities of that, kind of, I feel like Nintendo saw that opportunity, tried to implement some of that into the Wii U, as well as the DS line, and at that point they were probably considering that unity and that marriage of like our console hybrid, handheld hybrid, device. And so the Wii U, in many ways, and even the maybe 3DS DS, were that stepping stone tech demo. But yeah, I don't
For
want to
sure.
use tech demo as the
I
main
think
word, but
that's
like
I think that's
it
accurate though.
set up,
Mm-hmm.
the success of the Switch.
It,
And it just
it
unfortunately the Wii U, didn't sell well, and I think
Right.
maybe some of that goes back to like what Force and Unison said earlier. Like I think the marketing really failed the Wii U,
Oh,
and
definitely.
well, that
and
first reveal was really the one that set it off in a major way because everyone
And
was
it's
looking at this thing going, is it just an add-on for the Wii? Is it a brand new console? I had
right,
it even within my friend group who are all like massive Nintendo nerds and gone, we can't work like because I was certain it was a new
well,
console, but most of my friends were like, it's not, it's just an add-on for the Wii. And I went, why have they called it a new name though? Surely they would tell you straight up if it was just an add-on. And that's where the marketing really failed them. The price of the Wii U really was a stumbling block as well for
mm-hmm.
what they had on offer. You know, they weren't able to court the third-party developers and stuff like that with how expensive the games were going to be to produce on the system, and it's the
Honestly.
fact that Nintendo have always looked at the third parties when it comes to consultation with their consoles and how it's going to work, and yet they ignored all that consultation with them and just went on their own, which is why obviously the Switch is now a bit more of a success in that one because they courted the third party developers from the very start when they were in the R&D stage of it.
Well,
right, yeah,
I
and
And also, just to put it into perspective, because you wanted to know about the phone market, that was when the
yeah,
iPhone 7 and 7 Plus were out.
okay,
The first Google Pixel phone came out in
I remember
in
that.
the time
I got
in that time as well in 2016, and the
that.
Galaxy
Mm-hmm.
S7 as well.
okay, yeah,
So it's a long while back.
Um,
right, yeah, hard to believe, but yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Kylie.
I wanted to ask both of you. So remember, I am coming at this as I don't know much about Nintendo at all. Um, so Breath of the Wild, because chat is popping off about Breath of
yeah.
the Wild quite a bit. I want to talk about that because Jonathan, I want to hear your initial impressions, and then Pete, I want to hear about how you, because I followed along your story, which is, I'll straight up tell you, Pete was not a fan of Breath of the
In
Wild.
fact, hated it the first time I played it.
Yep, and then became a fan. So,
So yeah,
Jonathan,
Sencho, there is a redeeming arc there, I can tell you.
but Jonathan, what about your first impressions of Breath of the Wild? Because that's really the big. If I'm as an outside observer, Breath of the Wild was the big Nintendo Switch game
Right,
that
right.
brought it in front of people like me. It brought it in front of our faces. So I want to hear about your initial
Yeah.
impressions.
So I will say that as a Nintendo first party, the Legend of Zelda series is probably the one that um, I connect with the most. And that comes from a lot of different reasons. And I think one of them is just a really close personal reason is just um, when I was growing up and I was living between my dad and my stepmom, and I would come to my mom's. My stepdad was a huge Zelda fan, and he's probably the number one reason why video games have been a part of my life. And so when the SNES Zelda came out, he and I kind of went through this back and forth where he would play, save his game, quit,
Mm-hmm.
make it available for me to play, and I would play. And it was almost a competition of who could get through SNES Zelda the fastest.
Right.
Now, my gaming time when I was, oh, what's that, 93 ish? I'm terrible with dates, but
That would
93,
be
I think
about
94.
right. That would
I think
be.
the
Um,
link to the past was 92, if I believe
It's
right.
yeah,
that,
so
yeah, 92, 93 era for sure.
92, 93. So
Yeah.
I would have been like 10, 11 when I was playing that. So what's that put me like? I'm trying to think of maybe fifth,
Oh
fourth or
yeah,
fifth grade.
yeah.
Um, and
Before
so
junior
at that
high.
point, like my gaming hours a day were not a lot. So Zelda for me, kind of my love for Zelda kind of started just in that competitive nature of that, with my stepdad. And that has been throughout the ages. And I would say more recently, like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, those were Lee, my wife's first Zelda games, and she and I kind of played through those, together, on our own save files, but not really as competitive, but just she was enjoying it and that and so when Breath of the Wild, comes out, I think in my mind I saw the Zelda game that I always wanted.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Big
that's good to
open
hear.
world, really
Mm-hmm.
seamless. You're not going, like Ocarina and Majora's Mask, they kind of have that 3D, but like you're going into these little narrow corridor sections or little smallish. I mean, Hyrule Field's pretty big, but like these smallish areas that are kind of sectioned off. And for me, Breath of the Wild was like, okay, I could go here, 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 here. I could go wherever I wanted. And um, and I'll segue into my daughters both played it, Morgan and Bailey. Probably Bailey more so, and and it's kind of hard to believe, but like 5 years ago, Bailey was 7 and like playing Breath of the Wild, and
Crazy.
um, and she would again her direction that she went out from the starting of the plateau once you got down, um, her direction that she went was different than mine, and Morgan's was different than hers. And I think um,
Right.
with me, like the main things of Breath of the Wild that I enjoyed was that every story that I told was different than the stories that I was hearing, whether it was from friends or just from Morgan and Bailey. The way that they approached the you know shrines, the way that they unlocked them and uncovered them throughout the map was different than the way that I unlocked them and uncovered them. So I think that's one of the uniquenesses of Breath of the Wild that I really enjoy. I wasn't put off by the cooking or the weapon damage and breaking. I wasn't put off by the lack of dungeons because I felt like the whole world was made into this larger puzzle that needed to be figured out. So looking at chat, like some of the people commenting in there, like um, I'm okay with the rain and the weapon degradation. I think there were moments where like climbing up a hill and then it's like starts raining and you're like, and all of a sudden you start sliding down. But at the same time, the juxtapose that like you could climb anywhere. If you had the right equipment, you could up your stamina or put on something that would or eat something that would allow you to continue going. And again, so I didn't see those necessarily as limitations or whatever. um and I just really enjoyed it. So I would say my thoughts and feelings are just that it felt very open and very sandboxy. It felt very, I could tell my story the way that I wanted to, and in some ways, like the way that Breath of the Wild unfolds as a story is unique and different to everyone. Like nobody, like if you looked at your map overlay of like where you went, which they implemented later as like tracking that, nobody's would ever look the same. And I think that's a
Right.
unique thing that I
Right.
loved about Breath of the Wild because, if you go into even the SNES Zelda, there's kind of a order that, um, for the most part, there are some where you could go in different order as far as completing the dungeons and unlocking items, and then even a Link Between Worlds, did this where I
Mm-hmm.
think again a Link Between Worlds kind of um, was getting us ready for how Breath of the Wild would be, where A Link Between Worlds was like, okay, you could go this way. You might have to purchase an item to be able to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's like all of those things kind of add up for me as like things I like. Um, yeah. I know that was a lot, but
No, that's exactly what I wanted to hear is the true, like the passion and stuff. And I will state for the record, as we move on to Pete, is that Link to the Past and the one that was on the Zelda that was on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy,
Link's
Link's
Awakening.
Link's
Awakening.
Awakening. Those two are my absolute favorite. So
Yeah,
you guys
me and you
are,
share that together, obviously,
yeah.
because they're
But
my favourites as well.
I have to
Yeah,
say, between Jonathan and Chat, you're kind of selling me on Breath of the Wild here.
yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, I would say too, just to
mm-hmm.
Link's Awakening and my three Zelda favorites. Breath of the Wild's not in my top three. I would definitely say
Right.
it's in my top five,
Uh-huh.
but because of my circumstances, I think A Link to the Past will always hold that special place
Oh
in my
yeah.
heart.
Right.
Link's
Right.
Awakening and A Link Between Worlds, I would say in some ways, if I'm allowed to have three first places, like those would be my three,
Yeah,
because I think um, while Ocarina did the jump to 3D, I think it has not aged well, and
Right.
I would love to see some kind of 1080, if not 4K, someday uh, revisioning of Ocarina and Majora's Mask. I think as far as like ones that have aged well, the sprites of SNES, Link to the Past, Link's Awakening in the Game Boy, as well as even the remake and even the one on Switch was, a great revisit back to that world. Um, and then A Link Between Worlds, but A Link Between Worlds is kind of stuck on that two screen 3DS, and
Right.
so I don't know if we'll ever see that one necessarily remastered or
yeah,
redone. But I mean, obviously they could make some caveats to how the map and items and all that operate. But those are kind of my top three, and Breath of the Wild is definitely there. But again, I think it feels like, to me, it's overwhelming to think like, should I go play Breath of the Wild again before Breath of the Wild 2? And I'm like, I don't have the time to do that, because I
yeah,
feel like with Breath of the Wild, it's like, again, I know you can kind of run in a set path and say, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and get to the end. But I'm very much a like, ooh, Korok, ooh, shrine, ooh, animals to
yeah.
kill, ooh,
All right.
whatever. Um, and I just don't want to. I don't
Sure.
want to go down that path. So, Pete, your thoughts on Breath of the Wild and your love and or your hate and then love for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to obviously talk about, like, without getting a bit more passionate about it, obviously. So, I, you know, I bought Breath of the Wild. I wanted to own it physically because, well,
Hmm.
me physical games is always my wheelhouse. But when I went to go and pick my Switch up, I could only pick it up digitally because there were more copies of the Breath of the Wild out there than there was actually Switch systems sold. So clearly, I wasn't able to get hold of a copy of it like physically. So
Yeah.
I purchased it digitally, and that is always a bit of a problem for me because
Pete hates digital.
I don't hate digital. It's just I just like the options available to me for having a physical version of a game.
Yes.
So I went into it with the most open mind as possible. Obviously played the original Zelda, and someone brought it up in the chat. And it was the perfect vision of how they had with the original Zelda game, like the open
That's what's
exploration and
that's what's selling me
yeah,
right there. Yeah.
yeah. So, but when I picked the game up, I went into the Great Plateau. You come out of like the first bit, and you doing all of the busy work that you have there for the first couple of hours. And you're enjoying. I enjoyed what I played of it, and was just like, yeah, it's fun. Like, I'm not an open world gamer, so it's going to be hard to keep me invested in this. But I carried on through. I tried to keep going as much as I can. I made it to Zora's Domain and managed to get up to the one of the divine beasts there, and
Mhm.
kind of enjoyed the aspect of like the actual proper puzzles and dungeons that you would have with the divine beast that you would have that you didn't have with the shrines. And whilst I didn't mind that the shrines were sort of mini puzzles, they felt a bit too easy at times for me, and they weren't as enjoyable as like playing a full on dungeon,
Mhm.
water temple aside from Ocarina of Time, of course.
Yeah.
um but
Oh
geez,
gosh.
Man, I'm on the other side of the fence when it comes to the water temple. Not my favorite, but I've
yeah,
never had that much hate for it. But
yeah.
maybe I was a little older when Ocarina came out, and maybe
That's fair, yeah. I
you know
mean, when Ocarina came out, I think I was only 9 at the time, so it's like it was quite, it's quite difficult to get through that. And um, but I'm with a lot of people actually. The first time that I played Breath of the Wild, I wasn't stoked with it. I really wasn't impressed. Like the exploration and the freedom to do what you like was a really nice aspect, I guess.
Hmm.
But it was this I don't know. It just felt like busy work at half the time, and the world was quite empty, and it just,
Hmm.
and all of that. So it just felt like you could ride for ages and not see anything, and then suddenly like loads of things all come up in like short areas and all that. So
Yeah.
and then, you know,
Yeah.
it also doesn't help when you go to do your second divine beast, which is an aerial based one, and you get soft locked into the game where you cannot
Oh.
get yourself out of that situation. So in that
Yeah.
that one, obviously, you know, because you're up in the air, it's a lot of, you know, having to change status effects for to deal with the cold, and
Yeah.
I didn't have the equipment available to me to actually make that decent, so I kept losing health. No matter how many like food items I cook up, it would have no effect on changing that. So when I made my way off of the Divine Beast to try and help myself through that, there was no way of actually getting back to it. So it sort of we've gone, okay, yeah, you can complete the game without all four of the Divine Beasts, but nah, there was no way I was gonna do that. So I put the game down for a long time and just went, nah, not impressed, not happy with this. This is annoying. I don't know what it is that led me to go back to it. It might have been some internet problems and not being able to play games online that I just went, maybe I should revisit Zelda. Maybe I was a bit too harsh on it.
Yeah.
And just went, okay, all right, let's start again. Let's just restart and see where we go. And that
Mhm.
second time, I still wasn't impressed. So the same thing happened again where I'd been soft locked out of a certain area and I just went, this can't be right. Like, I'm so done with this again. And I just thought, nah. I'm never going back to this. I wish I'd owned physical, could have sold it and all that. So it's just this constant thing sitting on my Switch library going, just play me. I don't want to play you. It's like, and then once again, I don't know what it was, but I had this itch to go back to it and just go and play it and just give it a real fair try and a good effort, you know, to see if I could push myself through this. I don't like the game sort of mentality, and I don't know what it was that I think maybe going a different way around with the Divine Beasts and maybe trying a very different angle of going through as many of the shrines as possible, upgrading myself first to be able to get the Master Sword as early as possible, probably helped me to actually enjoy the game a hell of a lot more because it
Yeah.
put me a bit more focused on what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So I went and did all of that and just went did the first Divine Beast at Zora's Domain because I knew what I was doing. It was just easy to sort of get along and do that. But
Right.
then I went completely like on a completely different way round the map. So I think I ended up doing I can't, why am I blanking on the name of the area? It's the Gorons, I think it was. So
Okay.
up in Mount Doom, I think it is. Oh, that's Lord of the Rings.
El
Sorry, yes.
El El Elden, the
Uh,
Elden region,
Yeah,
right?
so I went out there. I did all of that last, so I think by that time I discovered that obviously there was clothing that you could find that changes status effects,
Yep.
and then it just clicked. Suddenly it
Yep.
just clicked. I couldn't put it down. I was just enjoying the general gameplay aspect of it, having to approach different areas, and the freedom that you have to be able to actually approach everything in the way that you want to is something that
Mhm.
doesn't seem to be the case in a lot of open world games, especially things like Grand Theft Auto, where as much as I love the worlds that they create, their mission structure is very much you have to play it how Rockstar want you to play
Mhm.
it.
Right.
Whereas with this one, there's so much freedom to doing it
Yeah.
however you want. So
Yeah. I
uh,
wonder. I wonder if that level of freedom, and again, I haven't played every single video game that's ever come out, but like,
What?
if that level of freedom was a first for a lot of people, and if that was
Mm.
maybe overwhelming to you or overwhelming
mm,
to others to like kind of put them off because they were like, no, I want my, because like I would say generally speaking, every Zelda game up until then, maybe A Link Between Worlds aside, was very much go in this order. Maybe you'd have like you could go to get the, you know, dungeon one, two, or three. You have those first three, and then you have that next seven or whatever. Um, but like generally speaking, I think this was the first Zelda game that said, no, you do you.
yeah,
You
it
want to go to the snow, go to the snow. You want to go to the, you know, Mount Doom with Samwise, go to Mount Doom with Samwise.
yeah,
You wanna swim with the fishy people, go to the fishy people.
yeah.
Like I
It's
think it gave you almost too much. Could, some people could perceive that as too many opportunities
yeah,
to
and
do.
that and it is exactly how the original Zelda was like on the NES. Though
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
like as soon as you got out of that first area, you were in that first area. It was like they don't give you a direction to go. You just go. You just
yeah,
go whatever way you want to go, and you discover
mhm,
everything. And that's what Breath of the Wild was tapping
yeah,
into. And I just
I-
because
yeah,
I didn't play the original Zelda,
Yeah.
all those years ago. I think I missed that in translation, so that's probably
Mm.
why I didn't enjoy it as much.
Yeah. So I think we could probably talk the whole podcast on
Definitely.
our our Zelda thoughts, but I think like one of the things that I'd like to get to is just
Mhm.
um the rest of kind of the first year of the
Yeah.
Switch and the
Yeah.
next four after that. So I know that's a lot to talk through, but like
I think that's
um
yeah.
yeah, and I would just say like I think we've all talked about this or we've seen the memes and everything. Like the Switch is getting games that were on the Wii U and that failed, and there's not many first party IPs especially that have not made their transition to Switch. So games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is according to the lifetime
Wow.
sales, is at 43.3 million, and in um is it less than a week now, or maybe right
Two
around a
weeks.
week?
Two
We're
weeks
gonna
time.
get DLC. Yeah, so we're gonna get DLC for the first wave of the new tracks, and
Yeah.
they're extending that into 2023. So we have a year and a half, maybe, or 2 years of, or maybe not quite 2 years of DLC coming. And I I'll tell you, I have Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U.
Yeah.
I have at least two steering wheel things to
Oh
Yeah.
goodness.
put the the original Wii controller in, so that you have like
Yeah.
motion driving,
Yep.
because for whatever reason my kids love that, or at least their friends love that. Though I think Morgan and Bailey have realized that driving with a controller on the Switch, that's how you beat your friends and beat them well. Um, and so I think like it's interesting that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has done so well. And again, to talk about like, hey, we haven't had Mario Kart 9, and I think this DLC in some ways is like again bringing in Tor and what's happened there, and bringing that stuff to the Switch. But again, why make a Mario Kart 9 if Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is selling so well?
Right.
The attach rate for that is astronomical. Um, I think even just in talking to other people, like Mario Kart's the game you buy with the Switch if it's not already bundled with it.
Right.
Um, and so I think again a lot can be said about that. Um, other games, Pete, that you mentioned and I mentioned a little earlier, Snipper Clips. Like again, I think Snipper Clips for me did better. Like I never got 1-2 Switch. I think I played it
Mm.
again at like a demo kiosk or a friend's house. There was nothing about that game that enticed me. None of my 35 to 40-year-old friends wanted to like milk a cow virtually or whatever. Um, you know, and do those. And I know there's more than just that, but like to me that was like that overpriced tech demo that you mentioned, and it's fine and dandy. Snipper
100%.
clips,
Like honestly, like I just want to go on to that
yeah,
with that. Obviously we've had it like set precedent with the Wii before, with Wii Sports being a really, really good tech demo of what the technology was available to you. Like, why Nintendo? And this is obviously something that we could talk about a little bit more because it's not all positive when it comes to the
yeah,
Switch. But this was a serious misstep in terms of their launch sales or launch games, that they didn't have something like 1-2 Switch being packed in with the console.
yeah, yeah,
I thought it was the worst mistake that they'd made at
right,
that time. If every single person got a copy of 1-2 Switch, yeah, you probably wouldn't see people playing it like as much as they probably would now.
hmm,
But you would see people sort of going, "Oh, you need to have a look at this game just to see
yeah,
what like this the Switch console is for."
right,
And yet you're paying £40 or $50 for that
hmm,
game, and it was
hmm,
it was baffling,
yeah,
right? Because I haven't picked it up, and I don't
yep,
want to pick it up. It's like this,
yep,
like, and we
yeah,
could say this in a similar sense. You could say the same thing about Wii Play when it was out at the time, but at least they bundled a Wii remote at the time, so
right,
that
right,
gave you an incentive to want to buy it, and then you played a couple of fun mini games, and
yep,
then you were done with it.
yeah. And I think like 1-2 Switch again should have been a pack in. I think that's we can agree on that. Um, I think there was like a hokiness about it. You know, to me, I look at it and I say, okay, there's some like very blatant stereotypes that are being put out, like, again, the milking the cow, the avatar for that is that overweight farmer guy, and I think that that's
Oh,
like there was
right.
just like a bit of that put me off, and even some of the other
Yeah.
games are like that where they're a bit too over the typed
Mhm.
characterizations that I just wanted nothing to do with. But then Snipper Clips, on the other hand, I think did a better job, or a really good job, of showing that, like, here's what you could do with the detached Joy Cons and playing with people. And I would say there's not a lot of substance in Snipper Clips, um, and so I think that's maybe one of the things against it is that um, you know it can be played in an afternoon and you're like, yeah, I got my fill, and maybe you come back to it from time to time. Um, Lee and the girls and I, like, every once in a while, would do like the little 4-player thing, but then the girls were younger at that time, and if you cut them up and they died, their little paper shape or whatever died, they kind of had a fit. So
Aw.
Snipper Clips didn't really last long in the Ober house, but there was some really cool puzzles and uniqueness in that gameplay that I think was um, more akin to something that we would have seen on, like, the DS or the 3DS, with that kind of um,
Right.
cutting,
Yeah,
puzzle solving.
Mhm.
So I think that was a great one.
yeah,
Um, and then other, like, first party stuff in that first year. Um, I'm a big Splatoon fan. Bailey has a higher Splatoon level than me, just because that kid loves her Splatoon and plays online Splatoon 2 all the time.
Mhm.
And she has probably asked me in the last couple months, Dad, when's Splatoon 3 coming out? As if,
Oh.
me or my uncle work there and we know the release date. So she's hyped. She's already on board for Splatoon 3.
Oh.
I'm on
yeah,
board for it. Um, and I think that was one of those games. Like, and I think, like, Splatoon in general, the idea of taking a third person shooter and Nintendo-fying it into
yep.
this
I was literally about
paintball,
to say the exact same thing, and the proper
like,
Nintendified.
they struck gold, I think, with Splatoon, and I'm curious to see. It looks a little bit like Splatoon 3 has a little bit of that, like, okay, let's take Fortnite, we're dropping in, where we
Oh.
dropping in, and they've got them on that helicopter, and perhaps
Oh
they're
gosh. Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know dropping into the maps and stuff, and maybe there's, again, it's unforeseen right now, but maybe there's a little bit of that um team, like 4v4, like yeah, like 4v4v4v4, four teams
yeah.
of four going at it, and maybe you're dropping in on those maps. I don't know, but that's kind of what I've gathered from that, is like now they're taking a little bit of that Fortnite or PUBG, kind of, battle royale type stuff. But I
We'll
think
see on
Splatoon
that.
2 was just awesome. It added still a great single player campaign, but when it comes to the multiplayer and just dropping in, I think there's still a little bit of, like, I'd like to be able to control a little bit more of the games I'm joining, and if I'm joining with Bailey, for instance, being able to always play on her team, as
Mhm.
sometimes it seems that, like, we don't get to be on the same team, and she's like, and then she's like, haha, I splat at you, and then she's like mad when I splat her, and I'm like, Bailey, that's literally the game we're playing.
Yeah,
um and then, other games like Puyo Puyo Tetris. I don't think I bought that game, but I definitely played the demo more than I probably realize. But I think that's just a great introduction there. Um, Arms, again, split Joy-Con. You're gonna need a second set. And maybe even more now, because you could do 4-player. But, like, there's just a uniqueness there, again, a Nintendo-fied fighting game, and using that motion control. And while maybe not always the best, again, Bailey and Morgan have realized, if I just use the controller, I'm going to kick my friend's butt each and every time. um, but again, very colorful characters, very unique fighting motion controls, um, unique kind of gameplay mechanics there. I think they did a great job. I don't think that Arms really had the marketing that it should have, and
Right.
probably could be a better mainline uh, Switch series, but it's a great game. I don't know if
It's
you have anything to say on any of those ones at the moment,
uh,
because I'm leaving some space for some
yeah,
of
of
the other
course,
bigger
yeah.
big ones. Yeah,
I got plenty to say about a few of those games. So, Snipper Clips, wonderful little experience. Like I said, I did discover that there was a huge design flaw with the Switch by playing Snipper Clips, and the fact that if you're playing it tabletop mode, there is no way you can charge that console unless you have a stand.
yeah,
So I sort of, so I was sitting around my partner's house like with a brother, and the only way I could play it whilst it's still being on charge was to sort of angle the Switch just over the edge of a table,
yeah,
which is quite a precarious position to leave it in. But
yeah,
it was the
yeah,
only way I could obviously keep it on charge whilst we were playing it. But
yeah,
that was an enjoyable experience, like taking the Joy Cons off, giving them to girlfriend's brother, and being able to play through that together in a couple of hours, and being able to like just enjoy that experience. It was something that I relish quite a lot, and I enjoy that sort of aspect. But what Nintendo did is they were incredibly smart with angling like these huge titles all the way
Mm-hmm.
through the first year. Like you
Absolutely.
mentioned,
mm,
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was looking at that going, "Oh yeah, look, that looks like a new Mario Kart in that launch trailer." But it was like, no, that's Mario Kart 8 with a couple of new additions. And considering that it sold 8 million units on the Wii U, which when you compare it to the 13 point something million units that were on sale, that's nearly that's well over half the install base. And they've gone on to sell like you said 43 million. So that now takes their current totals of that game alone to over 50 million, including the Wii U version, which is
mm,
ridiculous, you know.
mhm,
Um, but they were also smart by hyping up other games that were available to them. So you mentioned Splatoon 2. We know Splatoon 2 obviously came out in the July of in the summer of that period, but they tested it. They made sure that that online infrastructure was there and available and ready to go when the game first launched by having the test fire come out in March, which was a couple of weeks after the Switch had come out. Around about that time, like people had finished playing like Breath of the Wild, they completed the story or played as much of it as they had. They probably played Snipper Clips if they were interested in it, and maybe Fast RMX as well. But up until then, they didn't have a lot of other things to play, and then boom, like Splatoon 2's test fire comes out and everyone's talking about it. And it was an excellent advertisement for what they were going to do with it, and it was fantastic. Forcing Unis has also mentioned Bomberman R, and Bomberman R is a great experience, but it was unfortunate that the online community of that sort of didn't stick around as long as they should have done. And it was
yeah,
unfortunate because that was a great little game.
yeah,
But it was Splatoon 2 that and Test Fire that took it to new levels, and then not long after that you had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe come out, you had Arms coming out a few months later, and Arms is they also did the same thing where they had the test punch for that, and it was
yeah,
wonderful, like being able to just play that game and experiencing
mhm,
it before wanting to put down 40 quid or $50 or $60 on
yeah,
it, and just going, yeah, this looks like fun. I'll give it a
yeah,
try. And being a fighting game player myself, like I was more than infused to try out what Nintendo were trying with a one-on-one fighting game or a party
yeah,
fighter that wasn't Smash Brothers.
right,
And it was
right,
it was nice. It didn't last as long as it should have done. I
mhm,
will admit that I dropped that game pretty quickly.
yeah. Well,
But it was
it's. Oh,
go
I
on.
was just gonna say it's kind of fun. Arms is probably the go-to game. So I'm a small group leader at our church, and sometimes we've got the students over, or I'll take the switches to church, and we'll do a game night on a Wednesday, or sometime on a weekend we'll actually plan something like a really big like tournament that involves Smash and Mario Kart, and Arms is always in the mix as
Nice.
things that the students still want to play. Um, they think they're badasses or whatever when they beat each other up, punching as a ramen noodle
Yes.
character, or the snake, the snake
Oh
arms
yeah.
and whatever. And so it's funny, but yeah, I mean, I would say too, like Ober's dropped off Arms, but it's still a game that every once in a while, that's the one that Morgan and Bailey, if it's not Mario Kart or Smash Brothers, they're playing Arms with their friends, and it's because I think, at least what I've seen, is that it gets them up and moving around, and they enjoy that, and they want to show their friends that they also like to, you know, beat their friends' avatars up. So
Of course, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Arms was like you said, it was a good experience. It was a good multiplayer experience, and I think that was the problem
Mhm.
for me is that I didn't know many people. One who had a Switch at that time, and
Right.
two who had the online and wanted to play it frequently because the friends that I had at that time weren't interested in Arms until I took it to them. It was the same principle that I had when it came to Splatoon on the Wii U, where everyone I knew had looked at that and gone, this looks kind of boring, looks kind of bit
Yeah.
whatever. And then I went and bought it on a whim, and I literally told my entire friend group, this game is amazing, you need to
Yeah.
play this. And then within
Yeah.
a week, they're all on it saying the exact same thing, and
Yeah.
we're getting 4 people together for sessions, and then Splatoon 2 comes out, and at that time living at home with my parents, and they've gone on holiday. I've got all the boys round. All of us have got our own TVs brought round, our own Switch consoles. We're all playing online in parties, and it was amazing. Like that weekend when that game came out was something else. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it it was those experiences that made the Switch's first year like utterly incredible. Like, and
Right.
yet that still hasn't changed. Like nearly 5 years later, like it's just we're still people are still getting together and taking Switches with them, whether it's being
Yeah.
Mhm.
playing like getting involved in a Smash Brothers tournament
Yep.
or playing online with Mario Kart and the various other Nintendo sports games that have come out like Mario
Hmm.
Golf, Mario Party, and Mario Tennis, all of that. But then
Right.
you've got Switch Sports coming like this
Hmm.
year, which has
Yeah.
also got an online mode to it because you know,
Yep.
I could get in and talk about obviously how quite poor the online is for
Yeah,
Switch.
I think let's back up just a little bit because I think
Yeah,
let's table that because I think that's going to be a big discussion too
yeah,
as
I
far as
think
like
it will be. Yeah,
things that they've kind of still faltered and failed at. But
yeah.
I just want to circle back around to chat. And actually, because I've been talking and you've been talking, Kylie, are you able to just kind of look at specifically Force in Unison? He's got like
Mhm.
the three messages above the Super
Mm,
Bomberman R comment. Do you just want to talk about those so that they end up on the audio?
yeah,
Absolutely. Force in Unison says 1-2 Switch ended up selling about 3 million copies. So from a financial sense, I'm not sure Nintendo would have benefited more from it being a pack-in.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
an
I
interesting
I
point,
agree and I
actually.
disagree in
Right.
that respect, mainly because
Mhm.
like Wii Sports was a pack-in and is now like
Right.
one of Nintendo's like best-selling games of all time.
Yeah.
And it's being like you said, Pete. It's going to be a sequel
Yeah,
in Switch Sports. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those ones where it's like we don't really know.
yeah.
There's no way to like test that because
Mm,
it's like it's a pack-in, but it's also not. And how do we test? Does it being a pack-in make the Switch sales higher?
of course.
Does it not? Mean like obviously less people probably played 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2 Switch than would have had it been a pack-in.
I
Yeah, and
actually agree with
3 million is still respectable considering
Yeah,
like it was
yeah,
essentially a tech demo that everyone said they weren't interested
and
in, but
and
clearly
and
more
and
people were.
yeah, and the budget for creating 1, 2 Switch, unless they paid those overweight
that.
farmers and
Oh
whomever else
gosh.
the actors, unless they paid them an astronomical amount for that video capture, they probably made a good bit of money on 1, 2 Switch because I can't imagine that was a huge team and a huge
Right.
budget for that,
Yeah.
um, but yeah. So then, Kylie, the next comment
Uh,
there.
yeah, he
Um,
goes on to say, of course, this is in hindsight,
yep.
which I believe is about Mario Kart. Because
No, that would have
I
been
think
about
it's
one
about
two
1-2
switch.
Switch as
oh,
well,
okay,
yeah.
Yeah, which is what we covered. So maybe the
right.
next comment about Nintendo Fied.
Thankfully, not too Nintendo-fied, because Splatoon was supposed to be Nintendo characters battling each other, which I didn't know that. That's
It was.
interesting.
It's actually a
And before
throw
that,
off of the
bunnies.
idea that came about from Super Mario Sunshine, and it was supposed to be a Mario paintball
I
game.
knew that. I like you can see that visually. I'm not even a Nintendo Switch player, as I've stated so many times. But if you watch Splatoon gameplay and you watch Mario Sunshine, you know there's a connection there. You can't deny that.
Mm,
But I didn't know that it was supposed to be Nintendo characters. That's
yeah.
very interesting. And then he says, or they say before that, bunnies. Nintendo and
Oh
their
yeah,
bunnies.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times where you play a Mario game and you have to catch a bunny is just so ridiculous at this point.
Well, at least it's not throwing penguins off the side of a
Aw.
mountain.
Yeah.
Which I can say
I,
I never did, so I'm
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that.
So
I'm
I
staying
want to.
quiet in this
Oh
situation.
goodness.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Mario Odyssey in
Mhm.
this first year thing. But Pete,
I
I
was
wanted
just
to
saying,
ask
Pete's
you
very excited about that. That's his
before
favorite.
before we get into that, just because I'm looking at your list here, Pete.
Mm.
Have you played and do you have thoughts on Sonic Mania, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, or Disgaea 5 Complete?
Okay.
Because I have not played any three of those, and I will say um, I
Have
probably
no
never will.
intention.
Okay. So, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I haven't played. Um, RPGs are not really my biggest bag, to be honest, but
Okay.
I really like I really like what I've seen of the game, and I know it's a
Yeah.
bit harder to find a physical copy of it now.
Yep.
So, um, but since they got added to Smash, I have to admit I'm a bit more of a Pyro and Mithra simp. So, I might be more tempted to want to play that and Torna.
Okay.
Disgaea is another one of these situations. I knew about the Disgaea series. Like I've heard great things about it, but never got around to playing them. They are RPGs again, so very hard for me to get interested in them as such. Sonic Mania, oh boy, what a game that is! My goodness, if you love the classic Sonic games, that's what they are. It's literally the 2.5D throwback with some very nice new additions added in terms of the gameplay style. So the music is utterly incredible. It's got one of the best soundtracks of that year. I still regularly go back and listen to it like all quite frequently. That's how much I love it. And I own Sonic Mania Plus because I had a Plus version come out on two separate consoles and I paid for both of them.
Okay.
So I absolutely love it. It is probably one of my gaming experiences or favorite games of 2017 actually.
Okay. Yeah, I
Very
mean,
cool.
so just to look at that list, and again, not that they're the be all end all, but Xenoblade Chronicles 2, currently sitting at an 83 on Metacritic.
Yeah, with
So,
a third coming out very soon
top,
actually as
top,
well.
top, top tier game when it comes to, I think anything, in my opinion, again, Metacritic not being the end all be all, but
Right.
like, if generally speaking, 75% or higher are saying like you should play this game,
Yeah.
like that probably bodes well for that.
Gen- I,
Disgaea, oh,
I
go ahead.
generally tend on that situation to sort of go, yeah, 75% to 80 is sort of like, yeah, I need to have a look into this. 80 and
Yeah.
above is like, right, I think I need to play
Yep.
this.
Disgaea, kind of the same thing. Uh, Disgaea 5 complete, sitting currently at an 81 on Metacritic. So again,
Reasonable?
up in that top tier. And then Sonic Mania, and I will say this: I'll preface my Sega. I never had a Sega console growing up. I've always, went to a friend's house and they would have it, and I played. I think there's aspects of the Sonic series that I like. There's aspects that I'm just kind of like,
Right.
never really appealed
Yeah.
to me. I think Sonic, when he shifted into some of that 3D stuff, while it looked cool, kind of, faltered in some of those games. But then again, I
Yeah.
think there's other parts and aspects of it that I'm like, this is really cool. I have nothing against the Sonic series. I just never, had opportunities just in my house to have a Sega console, Sega system of
Yeah.
any sorts,
All
and
right.
not against Sega or any of that. It was just usually had to choose one or the other, and because
Yeah.
of my Nintendo love, the Nintendo systems just kind of always, took over
Sure.
there. So,
Yeah, I
and
think that's where I was a bit different in that respect because my
yeah,
brother would get the Nintendo consoles, I would get the Sega consoles. So,
yeah.
with exception to the
Well,
Saturn, because the Saturn was kind of a bit of a
Oh.
flop. But I was
yeah,
one of the very few people, like within my friend group, who actually owned what you call over there the Sega CD or the Mega
yeah, yeah,
CD over
yeah,
here.
yeah. Mega Drive, yeah.
And Sonic CD, like at that time, was absolutely mind blowing. I've gone back and
Right.
played it, and I'm not as stoked on it,
Uh-huh.
but Sonic 3 and Knuckles is like one of my favorite platformers, especially 2D platformers of all time. So
Okay.
having Sonic Mania come out and it really was this sort of like this is what like a 2D Sonic probably should have been on the Saturn was exactly what I was looking for because I'd become so disillusioned with the 3D Sonic games.
Okay.
Especially like I like Sonic Adventure to a degree. The music's incredible to it. The gameplay is
Mhm.
not so good.
Mm. And so Sonic Mania, if I didn't say it already, is sitting currently at an 86 on uh,
Hmm.
the Metacritic. And so looking at that list of like those other games that we mentioned, leading up to Mario, um, all of them, all three of those sitting really high when it comes to public opinion and that. And so again, maybe again, I have a finite amount of time, I have a finite amount of monies.
Yeah.
There, and I'm not really big on the RPGs, so I don't know that I'll ever jump into some of those. But
Hmm.
maybe Sonic, I should give it a go. So if anybody wants to gift Sonic to me, I'm not going to take you. I'm not going to be upset about that.
Uh,
But
It, the
anyways,
the good
yeah,
thing about Sonic is it is available on all platforms, so it doesn't
yeah,
necessarily matter how you play it, and you can
yeah,
probably find it on a good deal somewhere.
yep, yep. All right, so let's talk. Let's put the Cappy in the ring
Hey, there we go.
and talk about Mario Odyssey.
100%.
This again is another game on this list in this first year that many people would say that first year of Nintendo um, started with Zelda and ended with Mario, and to have those two, bangers come out in that 9 month, 8 to 9 month time frame,
Hmm.
is just um, probably hasn't happened before this in the Switch, other than I think Nintendo has done something like this again in later Switch years, but like this really helped Nintendo into the holiday season of 2017, their first, even before their first birthday. And to me, Mario Odyssey is a great segue from Mario 64 and even touching on some of the galaxy and sunshine aspects of the game. Not quite open world yet with Mario, but
Yeah.
probably some of the most open that we'll get. I don't know, just because of the structure of Mario, and at least, you know, gather these coins, gather these stars, or whatever it might be. Um, you know, do these certain things, and then kind of have like that boss battle that almost lends itself to more of a level base, whether you're jumping through paintings or, uh, you know, uh,
You're finding
whatever it might
different
be.
planets on
It's
like
finding different
on the Comet
planets.
Observatory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All those different things. There's very like, but I feel like Mario Odyssey was very playful. I still think there's aspects of it with the Cappy mechanic where I'm just like, I kind of can't believe this isn't a Mario game. Like, I
Right.
literally just last night changed my Switch icon to Mario as a frog, to Frog Mario I think maybe that was like the first area you visited
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was
with the area.
in the Cappy Kingdom, I think it was called.
Yeah, and then the T-Rex dinosaur. Like again, I don't know that I would have ever thought that Mario, and having obviously Yoshi's a dinosaur of some sort, but and Bowser to some extent, at least if you look at the movie that shall not be named,
Oh gosh.
um,
Oh dear.
but like
Wow.
those aspects of it where they were introduced into Odyssey still kind of just make me like wow. And as Force and Unison mentioned here, like Super Mario Odyssey is the perfect game when it comes to controls. The responsiveness is unequaled in any other game. I can say that if I failed at any kind of mission objective or jumping in the game, it was because I
Yeah.
did something. Like, yeah, I think it's got some of the best controls. It's got some of the best level design when it comes to maybe any game, or at least any Mario game. Um, there's this awestruckness, if that's a hyphen delineated word that I can make up, where again, seeing the Nintendo Switch and its games through my children's eyes. Um, the first time they played Mario Odyssey, and even the second or third time they played, like I just loved watching them go through those games, that game, and kind of the childlike wonder that they came at it with. And I think in my own mind too, like I was able to express that in Mario Odyssey. I think, um, had a lot of fun. Uh, I think one of my favorite parts was the boss that you fought um, in the water at the sandy beach area where it
Yeah,
was
I know
like
which one.
it was kind of like a squiddish octopus type thing. And I think I had so much fun just going around as Mario, where you had a little bit of that like putt putt of the water mechanic to move you from place to place, and a little bit of that hover. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. In some ways too, like having just played the Kirby Forgotten Land demo, the cappy mechanic kind of reminded me of like Kirby inhaling and absorbing enemies abilities and that. And I think again, a very unique approach
Well,
um to Mario Odyssey with all that.
now you guys tell me this. Again, as an outside observer, isn't it? Do you think that the capping mechanic was like a natural evolution from, let's say, Super Mario 3, where he could become a frog if he put on the frog suit, or a tanuki if he took on the
Get in a
tanuki suit?
shoe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and the shoe and all of that. Um,
I'm going to be honest here, and I'm going to say no.
right?
Actually, I
Okay.
really don't think so. Like the power up system has always felt like slightly different to Mario in terms of that. Like the Tanuki suit obviously acts very differently to something else that like within those games. The power ups that you get in each game is very unique. Whereas I would say this sort of felt more like Mario 64 DS, where you would actually have to take the hats of the different characters that would then make you play differently. But actually, you're playing through that entire game technically as Yoshi, which is feels a bit weird, I'll be honest. So Yoshi controls like Mario, Luigi, and who was the other character in that? Oh, it was Wario, wasn't it? So
Oh goodness.
um, and it's just that's what it felt like to me is in that respect. But I can understand why you might think so, like in terms of the power ups,
Hmm.
because this game doesn't exactly have power ups. The capping mechanic is the power up,
Right,
so
right.
um, it 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 was a bit of a game changer. I'll be honest.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it
Well,
did
the
feel like it
dinosaur
was
for
giving you a
sure.
lot more control over what you were doing. Obviously, it's not every enemy in the game that you can possess,
Right.
but it is an impressive amount of different enemies that you can,
Hmm.
and each one felt incredibly unique as well.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Yeah.
so you were talking about that boss where I think you have to possess like a jellyfish like thing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're
Something like that.
literally flying up into the air or across the water using like shoot like streams of water. It's really impressive, and it's really really well done in terms of the control as well. And I want to bring it back, obviously, to what Forcing Unison said as well, is that it is the perfect game when it comes to controls because that's what Mario games do every time. Like,
Hmm.
it's, every new game gives you that extra little bit of control over Mario, and it just makes it unique and different. So where games like Sunshine had Flood available to you, meaning that your mobility options were a little bit more, but they took away certain things that you could do in terms of like the backflip and stuff like that. So, but then Galaxy gives you all of those back whilst also having a Luma available to you, meaning you can defy gravity and stuff like that. So it sort of feels like this natural evolution that the Mario games were having, where it was a partner companion more than anything. And
Right.
it sort of felt like you could play the game co op, but it was probably better not to play it co op, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it was nice being able to have a co op option to it, but it wasn't ideal. But
Hmm.
my goodness, like it's the level design of Mario Odyssey that gets me more than
Yeah.
anything. It's that
Yeah.
these pseudo open world areas, like collectathon style, like it was in Mario 64, but not being Mario 64, where it's all self contained levels. It sort of feels like this
Right.
natural evolution in terms of that. And like we were talking about with Breath of the Wild going fully open world, this was Mario's first attempt at truly going that way. And whilst it's not fully integrated, where it is like 12 separate worlds all interconnected in that respect, yeah, you fly between them and they are levels, but these levels are huge. There are so many things that you can do in them as well, like so many little side activities, like in New Dog City, where you're possessing the letters just to move them into a spot so that you can get a moon from it, just so it spells out Mario. It's so weird little things like that, and trying to find all the performers to like create a band so that they're all so then you go into the practice hall when you find them and they're all just playing like the original like Mario Brothers music, and it's like just those nice little nods to Nintendo's history but also advancing the series to new levels was just something that absolutely got me. And just that first trailer as well with that music, like I know there are people out there who absolutely hate Jump Up Superstar.
Aw.
My goodness, like I watched that trailer 4 times in a row, and I was an absolute mess when I watched it. It was amazing.
So
Yeah.
This is what I was waiting for when it came to like the Switch. And Mario is like the biggest
Mhm.
for me, is like the biggest property and one of my favorite series of all time. So I always get hyped when it comes to a Mario game. I just never expected to see this incredible level of detail and
Yeah.
from the Mario series, especially possessing a T Rex.
Yeah.
Oof.
yeah.
I think there's so many, like, I think the Switch has some really beautiful games, and I think Mario Odyssey, you know, barring, Breath of the Wild, as another example of a beautiful game, but I feel like Mario Odyssey pushed a lot of my perceptions of what a Mario game should be or could be, and allowed it to, again, look unique and different in each of the kingdoms, look unique and different in how you possess and what abilities you take on, look unique and different in just interactiveness of the world around you. Like I found myself just like throwing my cap at everything, being like, can I do this, can I do
Yeah.
this, and like
Right.
what can it attach to. And so I think some of that discoverability very early on, like if you got in it and you played it and you weren't like caught up in let's plays or watching other people or reviews and whatever, and you just uncovered stuff, it gave this like fun quality of it that I don't know, like I'd really have to think through it, but like I don't know that I've felt that quite the same with any other game, you know in the last decade or two. There was just something about that I really enjoyed, um, and I think again the discoverability of that was something that factors into. Oh, if I throw my hat on a Goomba, now I can do like a Goomba stack, or throw my hat on that jellyfish. Like again, I think that was the one that like really I had the most fun with. I think I puttered around that water area, just seeing like what I could do, and then there's a uniqueness of it, like you need to refill your water, and that
Yeah.
so I think there was just, yeah, a ton of cool stuff there.
That was that,
um
that was the thing as well, is like the first time that you discovered like that you could hold your cap out, like just holding a button, just letting
yeah,
it ride there, and you can use it as another platform for
yep,
extra mobility, was just
yep,
it was a game changer. You could
yep,
dive onto it, jump off of it, dive again, and you could like take down these like these long gaps that you had, and just to go
yeah,
exploring to a completely different area. And I
yep,
remember seeing it from another podcast that I listened to,
mhm,
where
okay,
they're like, I think it was at the time, it was like their 6-year-old son was just absolutely enthralled with it, where he would literally just pick up the controller and just go exploring. And that was one of the greatest things about Mario Odyssey.
yeah. And then to back up to something we mentioned, that Sergio mentioned, or sorry, Force in Unison mentioned in his message. For whatever reason, bunnies are back in
Right.
Mario Odyssey, and I think that's again one of those things that for whatever reason, maybe you know uh, Miyamoto or somebody at Nintendo, maybe the rabbits just get into their garden or something.
Maybe.
When the Pikmin are trying to do their
Oh
thing, the
yes.
rabbits are eating them. So maybe
Yes,
there's
yes.
just a love hate relationship with bunny rabbits, and
Is,
that's why
do
rabbits
you
show up.
do you
Yeah.
reckon that's why we haven't seen Pikmin 4 yet?
Oh goodness. Oh,
Because the rabbits ate the
goodness.
game, or because the rabbits
Yeah.
ate the Pikmin?
Possibly, maybe both.
Why
Yeah.
not both?
So Force and Unison just mentioned. I kind of want to,
Uh-huh.
again, I think there's a ton of stuff we could talk about in this first year, as well as
Yeah,
the rest of other four. But in this Switch-aversary, like Force and Unison also mentioned, it was the most cinematic Mario games. I would say too. Exactly. I mean, I still remember when I threw the hat on that T-Rex, and the camera kind of pans out, and he's like
yep,
does that massive like roar, and even some of the bosses like just being larger. Like I think that's one of the things that Odyssey did, yeah, and Mario 64 did this too, where it's like, King Babam is
yeah,
huge in the
Right.
N64 game,
Right.
and Bowser is huge. Mario
yeah,
just comes up to the
Oh
tip of his
yeah.
tail, and he's chucking him off the
yeah,
um, blocks and everything. But like, I think that's something that Odyssey did a really good job of, and Force and Unison, I agree. Like, it is
yeah,
probably just so cinematic, and um, I think that's part of why that may be, is because again, there's this large audience that's watching the Switch. And when you have these bombastic cinematic moments, and there's other games and other systems that are very cinematic driven, um, that I think maybe Nintendo was trying to see, like, okay, how can we maybe do this and leverage those kind of things, um, with Mario Odyssey, and some of it is too just the horsepower in the Switch is that much greater than the Wii U or the Wii, and you can do these things now.
Well,
that was the things like you see that and you go, okay, well, we're having this break off moment like in the story, like, and that was always a bit confusing to me. Is like there was an actual narrative in Mario Odyssey where at one point you end up in a kingdom where you're fighting a dragon, and it's like, what? What? You're integrating these kind of real world things into a Mario universe, and it felt a bit strange, but it felt like a natural evolution for the series, if you know what I mean.
Right,
And
right.
we sort of had this storytelling option available to us with Sunshine, but I just don't think it was like executed very well in Sunshine, whereas
Mhm.
they absolutely executed it very well in Odyssey. And it's not the greatest story of all time, let's be honest. It is quite
Yeah.
basic, but it is great enough to get you through this game. And you know
Mhm.
the way they lead you up to that 500 moon challenge. I don't know if you've got to that point or you and the girls have got to that.
uh I don't know that I have. I feel like I did, like, the main stuff, did a little
Yeah,
bit of backtracking to the levels that I wanted to. And I think, if anything, this whole conversation today has made me be like, man, I need to, like, go back and just
yeah,
recall some of those memories that I had on those
yeah.
games. And
I I would
not
say
that I
do
have time
yourself.
to restart, but yeah.
I would say that if you've got your save file available to you, go
Yeah.
back, try and collect as many moons as you can to get to the 500 moon challenge, and
Yeah.
give it a go. It is unbelievably good, but
Yeah.
a real challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and that's the great thing about the Mario games is they have that. They have like the main campaign. They have the extra stuff on there, but you don't really truly complete the game until you do that final challenge. And
well,
it's
Right.
the real test of your endurance, your experience, or everything that you've learned throughout.
um,
And that took me an entire Christmas to actually
oh
complete.
goodness.
It was a absolute pain.
I do want to step in here a moment before we have to wrap this
Yeah,
up. I
Oh, wrap this up.
yeah, because I want to talk some criticisms before we
well,
like.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to fast forward a bit, and I am going to ask a very controversial question that I want to hear from both of you on. So if we
Mhm.
skip ahead to 2020, where the Switch numbers jump exceedingly high in
Yeah.
sales.
Be
Um,
by any chance because of a console that might have a limited edition sitting behind Jonathan at the moment.
well, but this is what I want to talk about. Is it, you know, was it because of, let's say, the pandemic that had everyone? Was this a good timing thing? Was this limited editions? Was this the release of Animal Crossing at a very pivotal time, 2019 to 2020? Um, so here's the question I'm going to put forth. You guys disseminate it, tear it up, do what you want with it. If the pandemic had not happened in the way that it did, globally speaking, do you think that the Switch console numbers itself would have been as high as they were, do you think that they would have continued on trend with the previous years?
I'm going to take this one first, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
Jonathan,
go ahead. Go ahead.
because I've whilst Animal Crossing done ridiculous numbers,
It did.
especially in that first year, I do in part think that they sort of inflated the numbers of the systems themselves, because I think a lot of people who are interested in just Animal Crossing went out and bought it. You know, you had people that went out and bought a Switch console, like the limited edition one,
Mm-hmm.
even though they already had Switch
Mm-hmm.
systems.
Yes.
So that would have brought the numbers up a little bit more. Like Jonathan had said, like before, where his girls have got their own consoles.
Mm-hmm.
I know plenty of people who went out and bought a Switch Lite or another Switch console for people in their family to be able to play Animal Crossing together. So
These
it's not out of the
Pete,
realms of possibility to say that that was the case at all.
Wait, Pete,
Right.
let me interrupt you just 2 seconds. The
Mhm.
numbers that you gave us, those are strictly Switch consoles, or do they include the variants? I forgot to ask.
That includes everything.
Oh,
So
everything.
like
Okay.
the
Okay.
way that Nintendo managed the numbers is that it's what they call the Switch family of consoles. So the Switch Lite, the Switch
Right.
OLED, and the what they're now calling the Red Box Switch
Right.
is
Okay.
like
Okay.
they're all unified in this one. So you won't find that many detailed breakdowns of how many Switch OLED systems have come out
Right.
since
Okay.
October. You might find a few, but Nintendo won't officially say it.
Right.
They'll lump it all into the family of consoles
Okay.
mentality. So I think Animal Crossing came out at the right time, but we do have to remember that game was originally delayed from October of 2019. So
Mhm.
it's an interesting situation to sit there and go, okay, would Animal Crossing have sold as well as it did if it didn't come out during a pandemic? I I think it still would have sold ridiculous numbers.
Mhm.
People were excited about the game. The Animal Crossing fan base are rabid, to say the least. They absolutely love that series and will
They
eat
do.
up anything that's given to them.
Mhm.
And probably rightly so, because most games that they're given, barring like maybe Amiibo Festival and Happy Home Designer, might not be the
Oh
best
Christ.
steps in terms of that series. But all mainline games of the series have been universally decent sellers.
Mhm.
I just think that the Switch's like install base at the time, as well as the good timing, definitely made a lot more people interested in Animal Crossing than they should have been.
Right.
I would say, like, so if we're looking at 2017,
Mhm.
2018, and
Yes.
2019, the year sales,
Yeah.
13.12 million for 2017, 16.34 million for 2018, 19.28 million for
Mhm.
2019, and we stop right there. There's a momentum increase each year on those.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways the Switch was already gaining momentum. The Probably around that like second and third year, people are double dipping because they're
Yeah.
buying a Switch Lite. They're replacing their launch day console with possibly the better battery life one.
Which
Right.
Um,
is
they're
what we refer to as the red box
Yeah,
switch now, by the way.
they're looking to the left and the right at to their spouse or their kids, and they're like, yeah, I'm kind of tired of sharing. I mean, that was the boat
Right.
I was in. Kind of tired of sharing, and I want my own. So that's why I have the Animal Crossing one here, and that's where Morgan, got my OG Switch. Um, and so again, we became at that point. I have to look back because we might have had the Switch Lite before this one. Actually, I think we did. Maybe the Switch Lite came the Christmas of 2019 or 2018. I mean, um, so at this point, somebody, you're probably double dipping. So I feel like those numbers get inflated a little bit because you already have that install base, and now they're getting a second one.
Mhm.
Um, but I think and again, there's no way. This is all just speculation. There's no way to know. Animal Crossing's release probably helped those numbers. Aside from the there's also like these other companies that are out there that their stocks, their releasing of new consoles coming, probably made other people like, oh, I'm not going to buy a PS4 or PS or an Xbox One X or whatever it was at the time
Yeah.
because I know the next one's coming. And so if they're going to buy something that holiday, they're looking at maybe a Switch at that point, and
Mhm.
maybe in 2020 there was just a lot of good things going in the Switch's favor. I was looking at a list. I don't think it's an end all list by Nintendo.fandom.com, and I was looking. Okay, 2017, the list of game releases wasn't bad. There's a lot
Right.
there. A
Right.
lot of first party, a lot of great
Right.
third party and indie games. And I look at 2018, that list gets ever increasing, ever increasing. 2019, that list grows so much. And so I think also you're looking at those first 3 years and you're just seeing there's games, there's games,
Yeah.
there's games. You look at the even, far back like N64, maybe not so much the Wii, but probably in some ways, or sorry, the GameCube, but maybe then not so much the Wii. But if you look at the Wii U, there weren't games to play. There was stuff to play in those
Oh
first three
yes.
years, and
For
I
the
think that
Switch,
helped
absolutely.
all that. So again, a ton of momentum, ton of buildup, and people are going to buy them. Now, looking at the numbers for Animal Crossing right now, or well, I don't know. I guess that would have been December 2021 numbers.
Yes.
37.62 million. That is the best-selling Animal Crossing
Yeah.
game. Um, in my house, we've got a digital version and a cartridge version because
Goodness.
digitally I can only share with Morgan's console.
Yeah.
Bailey bought her own. Bailey bought a cartridge. So we double dipped on Animal Crossing. I got the special edition Switch unit, so that factors into there's probably again people buying a new Switch that are gonna get Animal Crossing, and those numbers are probably included in that to some degree um, with the digital version that they got. And so I think there's just a bunch of things. And then again, we had a pandemic. Like Animal Crossing came out March 20th,
Right.
2020, which I believe was the weekend of lockdowns in
It was.
America.
Yeah.
I
That's
was
when it
actually
was
supposed to be
starting.
at I was supposed to be at a conference that weekend that got shut down for word camp, and I still have the tech equipment in my basement because we haven't done any word camp since then.
Yeah.
And but instead of going to
Mhm.
word camp and being at that conference and not getting to play Animal Crossing that day, I got to play Animal Crossing that day. Um, and so I think there was a lot of that, and then it became the thing that people talked about when we couldn't get
Yes.
in face to face meetings and we couldn't be a part of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot that helped it.
Yeah. I'll be honest as well, just to quickly interject here. Coming out on the same day as Doom Eternal and all that cross promotion that they had with
Yeah,
Doomslayer and
yeah,
Isabel definitely
yeah,
helped to put Animal Crossing more into the
yep,
mind eye of those. Let's
yep,
let's be honest, the internet lolcows, because they, they
yeah, yeah,
they they ate that up like anything, and I
hmm
definitely was one of those too.
hmm yeah. And again, I think there's just the general casual Nintendo player. Um, Animal Crossing is like a great game to pick up. And it's low impact as far as it shouldn't stress you out. I mean, maybe it does when you're trying to collect certain furniture, certain characters onto your island. I have a wolf only island, because I want a dog and I can't, and the wolves, in my opinion, look really cool. So I have a wolf only island, and I am not letting any of them leave. So they're now my prisoners, I guess. I got dark. But
Prisoners,
like
pets.
it's just been fun to build and visit Morgan and Bailey's towns, and we've got a couple friends where we visited theirs, and so it's become like a community thing,
Mhm.
especially when we couldn't be in a community. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great stuff there with Animal Crossings and its sales and its
Yeah.
timeliness. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, if would it have done the same if it came out in October and people were done with it by the time
Right.
the pandemic hit? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, Force in Unison. Like just to come back to the chat, he had just mentioned they had graduation and weddings in Animal Crossings. Like, yeah, there
Yeah.
were birthdays,
Mm-hmm.
graduations, weddings, probably other parties were all done. Like, hey,
Oh
let's all
yeah.
get into Animal Crossing, or
Yeah.
at least you and 7 other people. Come to my island. There was, the whole Switch community of like, what's your price of your onions? Like, I got into
Oh
that
my
Oh,
skunk
goodness.
market
yeah, the
in the
old
Oh my
beginning.
the turnip
gosh.
stuff, the
Yep,
turnip price crash and all that sort
yep,
Oh
of
my
thing.
gosh.
yep. I mean, I probably have 18 to actually I probably have more than I think I actually have like 40 million bells. But like I got a ton of bells. I got a ton of you know, fossils. I still visit my Animal Crossing island and still jump on every once in a while for the DLC stuff that's out and all that. So um yeah, I mean it's a great game. So
Yeah, it's a game that I wasn't as interested in playing myself. Like when I saw all the direct stuff, and I was like, I haven't played Animal Crossing before. I know what it is. Like I'm not sure I'm interested in this as much. I come from an old school aspect of where I played Harvest Moon back in the days, and I really
Mhm.
enjoyed
Right.
those kind of games, but
Yeah.
I wasn't as sold on them like anymore. So I was interested in watching people play Animal Crossing just to see what they were doing in terms of their island, and as a result of that, I ended up like catching a load of streamers who would like play the game and enjoy it, and then as a result of it, like plenty of people in Rapid Reviews UK were like well into it.
Oh
We're all
yeah.
like it was an
Affected.
infectious time. It was an infectious time on that
Yeah.
Discord where everyone was
Yeah.
talking about it. Got to discover certain people through it, like Millie, who was massive on streaming like that game, and got talking to her, and she's
Hmm.
been a contributor with Rapid Reviews, like on the podcast, and friends of like Chloe, who's an editor on the site, and all. It
Yeah.
was this nice wholesome game that brought
Yep.
people together, and it was a great thing
Yep.
to have, especially
Yep.
4 years into the Switch's lifestyle, like
Yeah.
lifespan at that time, and it
Yep.
just catapulted those sales like ridiculously, not like to ridiculous levels. It's 9 million more units like on
Hmm.
2020 sales compared to 2019 as a result of
Right.
it, and I think a lot of that is based on Animal Crossing more than anything.
Right. Right.
I have
Yeah.
to agree. As again, as an
Go ahead.
outside observer, the phenomenon of Animal Crossing, it it permeated everything, much in the way Elden Ring seems to be doing now.
Hmm.
Where that even now, I know what people mean when they're like, how much are your turnips or whatever?" I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It definitely was a game that like invited conversation
mhm,
in a mainstream way that I don't know that, aside from maybe like again my conversations with Breath of the Wild and even some with Odyssey, like I don't know that any game has done that since for me.
right.
So the
I could
only
see
one
that.
that probably gets close for me is probably Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm, right.
I
Well,
mean, we could talk about that, but I wouldn't have much to say. But yeah.
uh,
Let's not talk
So
about Pokemon at all.
plus we're
yeah.
running out of
So
time.
one of the, oh, go ahead,
Well,
Kylie.
I was going to say, let's steer this conversation towards the end, shall we?
right.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say was, all right. Quick little comment. Gary Whitta, the screenplay writer of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, even had his own animal talking talk show.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's great.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
but what I want to say as we head towards wrapping this up, is that I want to hear from both of you what has been like your fondest moment, which I think we can kind of assume from Jonathan, but we'll go ahead and rehash it. Your fondest moment in these last 5 years, and also what is the future? Do you think, purely in your opinion, there are no wrong opinions? What do you think is the future of the Switch at this point?
Oh, Jonathan, you go first.
Cool. Okay. So I think, and maybe I'll direct people um, over to my Twitter if you haven't followed me. It's just Jonathan Ober, JonathanOber. On the third, I posted some thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
just this, the Nintendo Switch 5 year anniversary, and some of my biggest, just in fondest memories are the way that the Switch invited me into a community of gamers and journalists that I wasn't a part of prior to the Nintendo Switch. Early on in the Switch's life, I was invited to be a reviewer for a site called Switch Score, which is no longer around, but there's still remnants of that community in my life. And so for me, my fondness for the Switch is that invitation into the gaming collective, being able to review games, as Kylie said, being able to be a part of rapid reviews in website updates and maintenance and keeping that site going, working with Mike and Kylie and Pete and the
Yeah.
team and Chloe. There's just a ton of people on the rapid reviews team that I got invited into being a reviewer for them. Um, and that was because again of the Switch and just some of what I was doing with Switch Score as well as with MikeTendo64.com, friend of the show, and just Mike and Jack giving me an opportunity to share my opinions on games through reviews and through updating their website as well.
Mhm.
um, and then ultimately I would say the Switch has really been the family system for the Ober family. Um, Now, my wife has not really played much other than my Pikmin 3 time is probably nearing 100 hours. That's because that
Wow.
is the go to for Lee and I as far as multiplayer gaming and
That's
bingo
excellent.
battling in the most loving and caring way possible, aka like let each other know when you've got a pile of boulders to throw down and being nice about it, and letting each other know that we're not gonna like nefariously ruin each other's lives. And honestly, like we have to end the 12 levels pretty much 6-6 as far as the scorekeeping because competitive wife problems. But
That's awesome.
the Switch is the Ober family gaming console. My kids have benefited from my reviewing just by playing a ton of games that
Oh yeah.
we haven't even talked about yet, but like there's a plethora of first party games that are just outstanding, amazing. And Nintendo has always been about the multiplayer aspect and the community aspect of like couch co-op. And that's something where I don't know that I would get if I was playing on a PlayStation or an Xbox. Not to
Right.
say that there aren't games like that, out there for those systems, but playing through um Luigi's Mansion 3 together with Bailey, playing
Mhm.
Splatoon 2, playing Monster Hunter Rise, playing uh, a variety of indie games that really touch my soul in a different way. Yelling at each other over Overcooked,
Right.
laughing
Oh gosh,
together while we
yes.
play or while I play with others. Jackbox Party Pack games.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of just the family aspect of the Switch that again I don't know that I would have gotten elsewhere. My girls love Dragon Quest Builders and Minecraft and Animal Crossing, and
Mhm.
we've shared those creations with each other. And again, those games are other than Animal Crossing, those other two games are on other systems. But because of the nature of the Switch, it's like they would come to me with their Switch, Dad, look what I made, and like hold
Oh.
their Switch in front of me. Where as if they moved our 50-inch TV or whatever,
Oh.
I'd probably have a cow.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily have to get up while they want to come and show me these things or um, and they've showed other people. They've showed their friends. They've showed their grandma, the stuff that they're making
Oh.
and the different things there. So I think for me, like the fond memories are like this is the system that my girls have as their first,
Mhm.
um, and
It's important. It's important. We all remember. We all remember the
yeah,
game, the game console that got us into it, that made us passionate.
yeah,
And
and
it's
it's been neat to see because like again, you know, part of me hopes that someday they may be in the video game communities doing stuff,
oh
but
yeah.
like Morgan draws Legend of Zelda characters and other video game characters, and Bailey does as well, and they're sketching and including that into their everyday. And again, so
Yeah.
it's like I'm kind of getting like emotional dad over here, but like it's really been about seeing gaming through their eyes.
Absolutely,
And I
yeah.
think that's the fond memories that I have, and hopefully, will continue to have as they grow. Um, yeah.
I think so. I think you set them up a very solid, firm foundation.
Yeah, I mean they love talking about video games with their friends. They love playing games with their friends. They're definitely, they're the ones that are going to the lunchroom and saying, "Hey, did you see that trailer
Oh
for,
yeah.
Animal Crossing? Did you get to play blah blah blah? You should come over and play Mario Kart. You should come over and play Smash Brothers, whatever it might be." They're the ones that are like geeking out, nerding out over video games right now,
I
in their friend circles.
this may sound cheesy to our listeners and our viewers, but that actually warms my heart very much because I remember being the only female
Mhm.
gamer in my entire school, and that is not at the time. We're talking, different time than now. That
Yeah,
wasn't a great banner to hang around your head and be proud about.
right.
And to hear that, you've encouraged this, this new generation coming up where
Yeah.
it's not even nobody goes, oh, girl gamer. No, they just think gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's very pleasing to hear. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But by that same token,
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you think is going to happen to the Switch?
Oh, I honestly think that our what I would like to see, selfishly speaking, I would like to
Absolutely.
see Nintendo continue with this hybrid model, whether it's clicking off the side controller Joy Cons and having that, or you know, it's playable handheld and you dock it, and if you're gonna dock it, you need pro controllers or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nintendo would be it would be a pretty idiotic move, in my opinion, if they just abandon the hybrid console model, because it consolidates the business, it consolidates the games.
Mm-hmm.
They're developing one Zelda game instead of two. And again, I know Zelda
Right.
not a great example because they're probably developing multiple Zelda games at the same
Well.
time, but like they're able to take their game ideas and kind of consolidate it.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think from a business aspect, like it just makes sense. Like let's keep at it. Now, will they unleash some other crazy new gimmick on us? I have no idea. I personally think the Switch itself is just going to go through iterative changes of better battery,
Oh
better
yeah.
screen, maybe better processing, some kind of maybe 4K output for TV, because you don't necessarily need 4K in your hands just because of the way that the
Mm-hmm.
small ass screen is not really going
It's
to
not gonna reflect it. No.
be, yeah, it's not going to be
Yeah.
the same.
And battery
um
would just get killed
and
almost
and the
within
battery,
30 seconds.
I mean, look at the Steam Deck, not to switch to that, but like that battery life, for what I'm hearing, is like 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more.
Oh gosh.
And I think the Switch handheld, like, if you're getting 2 hours, like that might be the minimum. I mean, that's partially because I don't want my kids playing video games for longer than like 2 hours in a time. But like once you start to dip below that 2 hours, like I find it a hard sell, for me at least. Now, I also we haven't really talked about this. I I- the only time my Switch is played in handheld mode is if I'm playing it in docked. I take it out to walk downstairs to put it into the dock in the
Oh
downstairs
right.
TV.
Right.
I very rarely play handheld. I'm probably like 90% docked, and maybe off chance, 10% here and there, I'll lay in bed. But like my bed's right there, my TV's right here. I'm
Oh
gonna play
yeah.
docked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I think what we'll see is this is kind of my long-term speculation. We'll see iterative, you know, better battery,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a bit more of a solid, maybe one piece design, not necessarily Joy-Con removal. Because I think in the next 8 to 10 years, we'll be talking about some kind of Switch hybrid, handheld, docked, as well as VR kind of
Okay.
unit where
I was waiting
Yeah.
for
where
you
they're
to say
all kind
VR.
of coalescing together. Whether it's docked in your forehead like
Yes.
Labo VR, I don't necessarily, again, that's where the 4K screen could
Mm-hmm.
be used because of the like 1080 split between the eye kind of thing, or
Right.
or a
Right.
little bit higher than that between the eyes, would be what you would need for good VR. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd love for the next one to be VR, but I don't think Nintendo's quite there yet, but who knows?
Yeah,
We'll see.
they
Yep.
always bring in some cutting edge stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, technology is advancing every moment,
Oh
so
gosh, yeah. Oh, it's
uh,
unbelievable. But Pete, what about you? First
It's
your
gonna.
favorites,
l-
and then what you think.
Okay, well, this is gonna come as absolutely no surprise to anybody whatsoever who listens to the show, who knows me as a person. It was that first reveal of Smash Brothers Ultimate that absolutely blew my head off. Just thinking we were getting a whole new Splatoon game like that soon after, and then like a whole flash into the whole lights go dark, and you're seeing the silhouettes of all these characters, speculating about who was going to come into the roster, and all of that, and then you have the hype moment before it was revealed that every single character that was previously available in Smash Brothers history was coming back, including you know favorites like Snake, who you never thought would ever make their way back.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, and like obviously from a personal aspect, like I've run tournaments from this game, like at Together We Play meetup. I've done like the Together We Play like 2 week like fortnightly sessions on Smash Brothers for about 18 months now, and I've met new friends playing this game like in a time when it was been probably its most bleak in terms of like socialization and all of that. So it's been an incredible outlet for that, but more personally, it was the very first game that I actually got the chance to review in a professional capacity, and I will always hold it in the high regards that I'm always forever thankful. At the time that it came out was a very difficult time in terms of like my personal life, where I was finally starting to go down the journey of the mental health
Mhm.
like aspects, and looking into further options because I was being made redundant at the time. And this it led me down a path that went, okay, I'm just going to try my luck. I'd written reviews but never posted them out there to anyone else to see, and then
Ooh, right.
it finally just gave me the chance to just go, nah, you know what, let's just try it. Let's just bite the bullet, give it a crack. And I'm always forever thankful for Starburst, like Starburst magazine, like for what they did and being able to allow me to review the game. Like my very first review was with them, and then that then leads on to obviously getting in contact with Mike at Rapid Reviews UK, and just being able to review multiple games with them, like being able to sit there and play in trials, like a series that I absolutely loved on the Xbox coming to the Switch, and being able to review that as my first game with them. It's led me, like, if it hadn't been for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. Like, it led me into this podcast. It led me into Rapid Reviews UK. It changed my life, let's say, and
Mhm.
probably for the better. So as much as I love the experiences of Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, Zelda after the third attempt, and various other experiences that I've had with other consoles as well, it's Smash Brothers that always gets me interested, like, and always gets me more focused on anything else. So I can't give it to anything else. Like, everything that they've done in terms of that series has been amazing in terms of the DLC experience, like being able to add DLC characters after the fact and keep covering them, and be able to wake up on a day when they launch and just go, you know what, 30 minutes, let's just have a little tryout, see what they feel like, all the speculation. I'm gonna miss all of that now that it's gone, obviously, but that's not to say that Smash Bros is dead by any measure,
Right.
because I'll still play it very regularly. In terms of like where I see the next few years of the Switch, I actually am not going to disagree with Jonathan whatsoever on this one. I think I think if they were to go down the line of having just a separate home console and a handheld again, like they did with obviously the GameCube, and
Mhm.
having the GameCube and the GBA and the Wii and the DS, and you know and the 3DS and the Wii U at the same time, like even go back as far as like the SNES and the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color and everything like that. Like, you were right in that respect. They were creating like a handheld experience as well as a console experience. Now they've consolidated that entire development cycle. They could probably put out a lot more games than they ever thought they could.
Right.
So that's why we got teams like Grezzo working on Link's Awakening like remake, and you've had like Koei Tecmo doing the Warriors games for Zelda, which is, I mean, they aren't my favorite experiences, but my goodness, just having them available to us is quite interesting. But
Right.
if they decide to obviously move back to that model, I don't think they're going to have the same kind of success. And I think the only thing they can do is obviously iterate on it further. So, like you said, better processors, bit more of a higher display output in terms
Mm.
of handheld or even docked. We have got that available to us with the Switch OLED, and the fact that there is now an Ethernet port in there. They have the option to upscale a bit more in there in terms of the technology. So, I think that's the only way that they're going to go. Is that next we might see a Switch model that has potential to upscale to 1440p or maybe even 4K with DLSS incorporated on the system level with it. And then I think after that, Jonathan's right. It's a VR box off. Like it will be the triple threat, let's say, the
Right.
VR, the handheld, and the docked experience. And it will be perfect for that. And Nintendo could just keep going on and on and on with it. Like just keep like what they do with mobile phones, like with iPhone. Like Apple
Right.
do it
Right.
regularly, and I think that's the model they'll go. Whilst not releasing them every year, let's say it will be
Mm.
every couple of years that they'll release like a slightly modified version, like we got with the Red Box Switch having slightly better battery life, and the Switch OLED then having a better display and all
Yeah.
of that. So I think that's the only way that they can go. I could be very, very wrong. We know that Nintendo like to keep us on our toes, and I think they'll keep keeping us on our toes like forever.
Those
Like
Mhm.
they
those
won't change, and
directs.
I really hope that they don't change in that
Yeah.
respect.
Mhm.
They do need to sort out the online though.
Right.
Yeah.
Which actually
Yeah.
someone
I
in
mean,
chat mentioned that. I don't
Yeah,
remember who. It's
it
fault.
was Sencho, I believe.
Was it?
yeah.
Okay.
I want to say it was, but yeah,
Yeah. It was him. Yep.
yeah, their online model is pretty pitiful, and it is not even a scratch on what Xbox Live and PSN are doing. Like whilst being slightly cheaper, it is nowhere even close to those kinds of
Mhm.
services.
Yeah. And speaking of cheaper, I think one thing that I don't know if Force and Unison is still around in the listening audience, but one of the things that they had mentioned earlier, and we had talked about this, I had talked about this with him actually yesterday, was just the price point of the Switch has not changed
Right.
since its launch. If you think about, and in fact, the OLED model being more expensive, um, the Switch came in at 299
Yeah, so
99, and it has had price decreases if you think about the pack in with uh,
with
uh,
Mario Kart,
Mario Kart or maybe some other, I think there were
yeah,
some other retailers were adding on a game. And so in
mm,
some ways, yeah, there's discounts. He and I talked about some of the retailers, at least in the United States, were selling them with a carrying case or an SD
Right.
card, or
hmm
maybe you'd see Splatoon or you'd see Mario Odyssey or you'd see Mario Kart. So but there's not really the MSRP skew. The base Switch has not really
Right.
no,
decreased in price. And in fact, like I said, it kind of increased with the OLED coming out, I think, at 349.
yeah,
Saying we're a premium better package, which was kind of interesting in that, does the Switch need a price decrease? Maybe in that they would sell uh, you know another 10 or 20 million, if there was a price decrease. But does that cheapify the system? And if you cheapen the main Switch, or even the OLED one, if the OLED drops down to 299, you switch the normal Switch to the red box Switch to something like 249 or 229, then does the Switch Lite become a
Right.
179 or a 169? Like, I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know, again, does it decrease the value perception? And quite frankly, since they're still selling like a crap ton of them, like, do
Right.
they need to do that, or should they do that? I
I
don't
actually don't
know.
think they do. I really don't think
Exactly.
they do.
Yeah.
They clearly like seem to be like on a decent price point where it's it's not a snap decision, but it
Yes.
doesn't require as much discussion as a Series X,
Yeah.
or a PS5.
Yeah. I
Like
think the
it's
only
definitely fits into that sort of that mentality of having the Series S. You know, coming
Yeah,
in at
yeah,
$299, you feel like you can purchase it, and it feels like a bit more of an impulse purchase,
yep,
if you know what I mean.
yep, yep. Yeah, I mean, my Series S was an impulse purchase. My Switch, I mentally was like, I'm freaking pre-ordering this thing, and I'm
Yeah.
having it day one. I am. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The Animal Crossing Switch came out of, like I said earlier. I was tired of sharing, and quite frankly, I'm glad that I had the financial capabilities to getting the Animal Crossing Switch. Um, and then the Switch Lite, we just kind of fortuned upon that with winning a contest. So, like, I don't really look at that as like, oh, I paid money for that, but like, I think it is a little bit harder to sell. I don't know that I would, and we can maybe talk about this a little bit. I don't know that I would actively tell somebody to buy a Switch Lite when the
Right.
docking capability is
Yeah.
totally not there. Even if you have little kids, I find that, like, I would not have bought the Switch Lite that Bailey won. I would not have bought that at all. I would have sprung for, or I would have made her, do some chores and
Mm-hmm.
earn some money towards buying her own.
Yeah.
Um, I would not have bought a Switch Lite, and I have a hard time. Like, my sister-in-law bought a Switch for their kids for Christmas, and I told them to buy the one that you can dock it to the TV because, one, the three kids, well, four eventually because they're due with another baby, but the three kids that are there right now, they would want to play together, and they're going to want to do that dock to the TV.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I Not to say that the Switch Lite is a throwaway, but in comparison to being able to dock it, and then if you're looking at even the better battery or even the
Mm-hmm.
OLED screen, it is hard to look at, in my opinion.
I'll be the first to admit that I've only ever played the Switch Lite once, and that was when I was at EGX a couple of years ago, where they were running Link's Awakening on it, and
Okay.
I don't mind it. It just
Yeah.
doesn't feel quite as nice as the normal Switch, if you know what I mean. Like, and I'm with you there. Like, absolutely.
Hmm.
I think Kylie's crashed, by the way. So.
Have
Oh
I?
no, no,
No,
we
it's
had
Have
a
just a
I?
we had,
moment.
we had a we had a crash on the stream for a moment. We had a bit of a buffering moment, but that's fine.
Oh,
Right.
Um,
Okay.
so, but yeah, I've done the same thing as you, Jonathan, where like people have asked me, like, "Oh, you own a Switch. What would you recommend?" Like, I say, don't buy a Switch Lite. There's no point in them. Like,
yeah.
and I know that's sort of sacrilege to say because the Switch Lite is clearly there supposed to be a companion to the main
Right.
Switch. It's the one that you take on your travels with you when you don't want to take your big old Switch with you and whatever. But I
Hmm.
think what's the point in taking away one function for it when you can
Yeah.
just you can spend a little bit extra. Yeah, it's slightly more weighty in terms of like the red box Switch to compared to the Lite, but you have the Joy Cons detachable. You have the HD Rumble available to you. You have the chance to dock it, and it doesn't cost that much more either.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just have so much more available to you rather than just it's a handheld console. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And it
kind
actually
of.
came to be the case that like one of my friends was looking at it and went, "Yeah, I'm really looking to buy a Switch, but
Mhm.
I've seen this light version. Would you recommend it?" I went, "Don't, just
Nope.
don't."
Yeah, I look at it as it's the Game Boy Micro to the Game Boy Advance,
Yeah,
Yeah.
one
and
hundred
and
percent.
Right.
and that, I think, or the 2DS to the 3DS. It's
That's probably a good
Oh,
comparison
that's
in that
yeah,
yeah.
respect as
That's
well,
very
because
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
as much as I like so at the time when Pokemon Sun and Moon were coming out, one of my friends at the time as 3DS had literally just unfortunately given up the ghost. So they were like, right, I really want to play Pokemon. What do I do? And they bought one of the Pokemon 2DSs, and I looked at that thing. I tried to use it. It's hideous. It's
yeah, yeah,
utterly horrible to use.
yeah.
But with
Right.
revisions of the 2DS, it became a lot better. But
Hmm.
that initial sort of like one that they had, where it was like one big bulky design, oh, it was utterly disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the only other thing that I really would like, and I'm sure that's not the only thing, but one other thing that I think I would like to talk about in just a general thing, because we talked about our fondness and our memories and everything, and Pete, you and I, we would say, the Switch really catapulted us into directions with reviewing and journalism, and interviews and games conferences and that community and everything. I think the other thing that the Switch that I see from uh, a game designer developer perspective is that the Switch opened up the indie game development in a way that maybe up until this point was relegated more towards PC, and the Switch coming in. Like I feel like I see a lot of indie titles that are coming out on PC on Steam or Epic, but they're also coming out on Switch. And I think before that there wasn't as much of that. Like I have probably too many hundreds of, I know I have over 100 reviews between Mike Tendo and Rapid Reviews. Um, but I probably have a mass of like 200 to 300 games on my Switch, digitally as well as physically, and a good portion of those are indie developed gems, of games. And I think the Switch, for whatever reason, was a big part of that change for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna somewhat agree. Like,
yeah,
obviously, Microsoft had done a lot of work on the Xbox One era with the Idea Xbox program. Like, Sony probably weren't looking at the indies as much. Like, they had the studios that they worked very closely on, and they had experiences that that would be, let's say, Sony exclusive. So around about the time when Insomniac were obviously not owned by Sony, they were doing things with them, or Housemarque were also the same when they were doing like Resogun and stuff like that. So they had indie titles that were financially supported by Sony, but not quite the same degree as someone like Nintendo actually setting up the Nindies program back in the Wii U days. And that's
right.
really sort of bled over in a massive way into the Switch's lifespan.
Hmm.
And I don't see it being any other way for Nintendo now. Like, they've always supported, they always feel like they've supported the indie developers, and it's sort of, had it not been for Nintendo, you probably wouldn't see so many indie games turn up on Xbox or PlayStation,
Yeah,
especially when it comes to things like Game Pass. Like, it's given a lot more developers out there, the indie developers, a lot a bigger platform to aim for rather than just I know there are a lot of people out there who do PC gaming, but it is a little bit more niche than console gaming, let's say. And
right.
those indie games were coming out on Steam and places like that. Not many people would experience them until they sort of got a port. But now you're getting like games that are indie developed that are coming out day and date with um with other consoles, and it's
Yeah,
great. And
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't, not to say that again, the ID at Xbox, I think that was like 2013 or 14.
Yeah,
And there's definitely a good portion of Xbox, Microsoft's realizing that this is a niche audience, a niche group of developers that need to be recognized. And I think at the very least, like ID at Xbox laid down the stone, and then Nintendo kind of came across and put the asphalt on it, and actually put, that paving that forward. I just think that there's, again, for me at least, there's um, so many indie games, and I know Kylie, I've told you like several different ones that are on Steam or on
Mm-hmm.
Xbox and that, but
Absolutely.
they've also like maybe had a start on the Switch,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just been neat to see, because at the end of the day, like I just want to play games, whether it's on my Series S, whether it's on my Quest, whether it's on my Switch, or whatever other device I have available right now. um, I just want to play games, and I've just found that like I keep going back to, if an indie game is, unless it's on Game Pass where I'm already paying for it, I'm probably more likely to buy it on the Switch. And part of that is because if I fall in love with that indie game, I'm going, hey Morgan, download this game, or I'm downloading it for her and saying, hey Morgan, play this game, or I'm giving Bailey my Switch, just because of the way the accounts work, and I'm saying, here Bailey, play this game. Um, and I think that's one thing that, um, you know I'm not going to do with a Steam game, because my kids aren't likely to sit here at
Right.
my computer and play a game as they are just to hold their Switch in their hand or play it docked downstairs or
sure.
upstairs, or wherever it might be. I'm all in, and again, Force and Unison and I, like, we're all in on indie development games,
Mhm.
and I've gone to several conferences where I've spoken with indie developers, and it seems like Nintendo has a really great plan in place for them to make sure that their indie games are successful. We could talk about how eShops and stuff have kind of, not made it easy for discoverability, but I think Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo are getting better at that. I think that's something that's always going to be iterative on. But ultimately, I just want to play games, and I love Nintendo first party games, and I will, get the Mario's, the Zeldas, the Splatoons, the whatever it might be, that's coming. Um, but also, I'm gonna invest in those indie games and uncover those gems and
Yeah.
share and shout, those game titles out to people and say, you really should be playing. You just play games, really, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Um, we
Yeah, I was
are
gonna. We've probably gone long, so we might
we've
need to
gone
wrap this
we've
one
gone
up.
long, but
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
do want to say to our audience of listeners and watchers before we close out the show is that there's still a lot left unsaid and untouched in this Switch overview. If you want to hear more from Jonathan, more from us, thoughts
Yeah.
on the Switch and its legacy, and let us know. Let us know either in our Rapper Reviews public Discord or on Twitter. I almost said Twitch. Well, I guess you can kind of let us know
You can
on
tell us on
Twitch.
Twitch too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Um,
Yeah, because we actually didn't go over a few of the controversies, a few of the design
oh
issues and
yeah,
stuff like that. So we could.
We didn't even
there's
get
We
into years 2,
there's
3,
yeah.
so
4,
much
and where we're
more.
at right now. Like,
So
we haven't
no,
touched
Yeah.
a
so
lot of
There's
stuff.
let
Yeah.
there's
us
so
know.
much more we could do.
Let us know, and we will touch the subject quite a bit. Oh gosh, that came out wrong. We will touch on this again. That's
We will.
better. Circle back around. We'll circle back around. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the less
We
pervy.
talked about that, sir. We talked about that. Force and Unison talked about the price. You
We
must have dipped out in your
yeah.
mind,
Well,
but
there you go. There's a
um,
reason to listen to the audio version, or go
yep,
back and watch the VOD.
there you go. Watch the
yep.
VOD. Prep us some questions for next time, because I think there's a plethora of info here that we could absolutely non-pervy touch on.
Yeah.
But we're going to, yes, exactly, Jonathan. We're going to wrap it up because we have gone over. Jonathan, while we have you here, tell us
Mhm.
all the ways that we can see you out there in the interwebs.
Yep.
In the wild.
So I'm writing reviews for MikeTendo64, so MikeTendo64.com. If you just do a search for Jonathan Ober, you'll probably find my X plays and my reviews. Rapper Reviews UK, same thing. Just do a search for me. I'm primarily reviewing VR, PC, Xbox, and Switch games for Rapid Reviews, so I'm in kind of a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the socials, Twitch at J Oberlank, so JayOberLanc. I have not streamed in forever, but I'm hoping to once I get some time available.
Yeah.
Um, and then Twitter is kind of the best place to find me. I'm often ranting and raving about video games, sharing indie developers, and that's
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Jonathan Ober Ober on Twitter. And feel free to just engage in anything that's posted there. But those are kind of the main places to find me, follow me, read what I'm writing and reviewing.
Yeah, so get
All the,
your stalker on. Pete?
yeah,
Yep, get your
and
stalker on.
all the other stuff as well. If you didn't want to see, you can just see all the work that he does on the Rapid Reviews
Oh,
UK
yes.
back end of the website. So
Just show
Yeah,
up on the
yeah,
website. You'll see it.
yeah.
if
Just
it
come to the website.
If
Yeah,
it's running,
if
and
it
he does,
works,
he's
that's Jonathan's doing.
look for those out there who know
yeah,
what the heck I'm talking about. He's a WordPress developer, which
yep.
is like, oh my gosh, that is the person that oh, you take on a lot.
Yeah. Probably doing too many things, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So Pete, what about you? Where can they find you?
You can mainly find my writings on Rapid Reviews UK. It's been a while since I've done anything, but I will probably be
It's been a
back in
while.
the next month or so doing a bit of a write up about WASD in the future. There might be a bit of brand synergy with that one with Mike Tendo. We'll get back to that one, reveal more at the time.
Dun, dun, dun.
But you can follow me on Twitter. I man the Rapid Reviews Radio podcast Twitter, which is RR Radio Pod, as well as my own, which is at Pete Beckett one, which is spelled BECK and ETT and the number one. I had a Kylie moment there. But you can also follow my other podcast, which, if you like films and especially Marvel films, it's the Never Watchers, which we cover Marvel Cinematic Universe, where my co-host has never watched them, but I have. So you can find those on most good or some bad podcast players.
Excellent.
Kylie, do you want to let everyone know where they can
Well,
follow the use?
right now you can follow me over on Twitter, which is at Kiley Tegreet, KLEYTEHGREET.
Hey.
Nothing much going on yet, but now that the lockdowns are over in NI, you're gonna start seeing a lot of crazy stuff from me. And that is that's not a threat, that's a promise.
If you know Kylie as well as I do, I guarantee it.
It's true. You may even see some GoPro action of me jumping out of a plane. You do not know. You cannot tell what I'm doing. But we are gonna wrap this up rather. This episode, and we thank our watchers and our viewers, and we will see you and talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
That ends the podcast part. We will check in with you guys over here on Twitch for about 2 more minutes, but
Okay.
my voice is leaving.
Just to let
You
you
didn't
know
even
that.
talk.
Yeah, just to let you know, Kylie, my stream has died because my phone's run out of battery. So,
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's too
no,
funny.
I didn't charge it last night because it's a new phone. I'm trying to sort of run the battery down to make sure it's got all that in it. So.
Yep.
Actually,
I was just a hello.
Yep.
Drive by. Wave by.
Yeah, have we got any
Bye.
chats coming in?
Let's see.
Uh,
Jay
Well, I think
Oberlin
again.
has
I
some.
was just gonna say, like,
Yeah, what is
some
what
of the
is-
some of the things that
What's
Sergio
the
Force in Unison had said was
FIO
just,
Force in Unison? Oh goodness, right.
you know, the 5 years of the Switch. Looking forward to what's coming with the Switch Pro,
Mhm.
Switch 2.
Yeah.
You know, I think again, Pete and I would be in agreement that, you know, whatever's next, you know, hopefully will be something awesome.
Hope so.
And then just with regards to you know, some of the stuff that he and I have working coming soon, that's also, you know, something to stay tuned to. But
Are we gonna
it'll be
have
interesting to see.
Are we gonna have to have both of you on the show in the future? Sounds like.
I guess so. Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, that's some of the things that. Are we still live on
We
Twitch,
are
by the
still live
way?
on Twitch.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
This
Okay.
isn't
Just
recorded
make
for
sure.
posterity, but it is on Twitch.
Yeah. Okay. So just some of the stuff that we have going on with indie developers, specifically in Puerto Rico right now,
Oh,
and
very
some of
cool.
what we're looking to do long term.
That's very
Force in Unison's officially a business, and it's something that has been slow going, but hopefully we'll gain momentum, and hopefully that's something that he and I, as well as the indie developers that we're working with, can share with and be a part of, and so that's something. Just stand by, coming soon. Um, you know, as we start the early stages of getting on the runway and taking off. With
Well,
that.
always
Well,
remember.
once that's all up and ready to go, like, we'd love to have you back and obviously discuss that.
For
And-
sure, for sure.
Never forget, you know someone who can do merch should you need it.
Yep.
And that
Yep.
includes business cards
Well-
and all the accoutrements.
So I will say the interesting thing that Sergio and I have talked about is, again, the uniqueness of this community and how it's come together in the last 4 or 5 years. Not just because of the Switch, but just because of, you know, the opportunities that we've all been given as we've gotten into reviews and gotten into interviews and different stuff there. Like, you know, we've talked a little bit to Mike and Jack by proxy for Mike
Mhm.
Tender 64, just in some inclusion that we would love to have with them. And then we've talked a little bit about, like, how we can use the network that we do have. So, like, if there was a con in Ireland or
Yes.
in Europe, in the UK area that like you guys would be able to go to and maybe represent.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something that like some long-term goals that we'd like to do, but definitely have talked even about the merchandise and whether it's shirts or other, kind of things.
All
So
the
yeah, I mean it's
various.
definitely
If it can
all the
be,
various
so
things.
if it can be printed on, I can make it. Um,
Yeah,
um,
exactly. So those are definitely things like yeah, I mean you guys have been helpful for me as far as my personal just growth with rapid reviews
mm-hmm.
and being a part of the community, and
Absolutely,
it's
yeah,
definitely something that we want to include, if those opportunities arise. So yeah,
definitely.
stand by.
I think I'm gonna have to call it.
Yeah.
See, this proves to you how much I don't talk to other humans. Nobody can believe that. Everyone thinks I'm an extrovert, but I actually don't talk. And so when we do these podcasts, my voice just goes. Pete's pretty much
Now,
it who I talk to out loud.
now, if we would have had a planning meeting in the week, I'm joking. I'm
There's
joking.
yes,
I'm
like there's
joking.
reasons. There was reasons.
I
But
know. I know. Look, any chance I can get a shot in on
I
you
know.
whilst we're live, I'll take it.
Yes, of course. It has to be live. Remember that, people. Okay, but we do thank you guys for joining us. Join us again next week for sure. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.